On this week's episode of Friend Code, we're looking back on a spectacular year for Nintendo. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Friend Code. I'm your host, Michael Damiani, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest, Mr. Ash Paulson of GameXplain.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Finally,
yes.
Got somebody from GameXplain here.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
And we also got Kyle Bosman.
Hey.
I got to do that for once.
That was cold.
That was cold.
I'm kidding. Kyle Bosman here. Really good lineup here. We're going to talk about the year in review kind of for Nintendo. Not just the Switch, Nintendo.
Cool.
Want to make that clear to everyone in the audience. It's like I got some people who kind of heard that I was going to do it on the stream. They're like, oh, you're just going to be talking about Switches here. I'm like, no, we're talking about Nintendo. So like everything's being covered here.
There's some other stuff.
Even something I know that's going to anger Kyle Bosman.
Oh, yeah.
Because he doesn't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
He got annoyed when I talked about it too much. But anyway, really quick housekeeping. Because this is going to be a pretty lengthy episode. Because we have such a special guest here. We're not going to be doing Dear Nintendo, as usual. We're not be doing Patron's Pulse. And if you're a little upset about that, just remember last episode was completely dedicated to as many Patron's Pulse questions as we could do. So that will be returning next episode, barring we get more special guests or something like that. So don't be too disappointed. But anyway, let's get into 2017 for Nintendo.
Before you do that, can I do one correction from last week? Last episode.
Yeah, Kyle, you got something wrong, didn't you?
I got something wrong, yes.
What happened?
Nintendo owns NERD. That stands for Nintendo European Research and Development. That's their own little studio. That's their team.
All right.
And
I wouldn't have called you out on that. I just would have let it go. So good for you.
But I called them third party. The truth is
okay.
they started off third party, but then Nintendo's like, oh, we need these people.
So, the third party, that's a little... I see what you mean. Okay.
That was on me.
All right. I was there too. I was share a little bit of the fault for not like saying something or realizing it. So it's not all on Kyle Bosman.
Yeah, but I didn't. Ash, it went even wronger than that. I said they probably won't be responsible for the emulation on the Switch, but now I'm pretty convinced they absolutely will. Be.
Yeah, they probably. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
It was multiple goofs, so I really wanted to set the record straight on that, Damiani. I feel bad about it.
No, that's good.
Cool.
That's really good to do. So now let's get into the year in review for Nintendo. Starting back in January. Seems like forever ago. So there was a little January event for us. There was a stream, a broadcast on January 13th our time. There was something earlier on January 12th, but on January 13th is when the world got properly introduced to all the details behind Nintendo Switch. That was the event that revealed the release date, the launch date of March 3rd. We got actually I forget if we got the price at that event or not. I just remember the price was announced as $299. So it had to have been close. But we learned that eventually. So it was like it was going to be $299. But importantly, they showed off Mario Odyssey properly for the first time. Not the few snippets of like footage that we saw the few months before. And we
saw New Donk City.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We saw some good stuff. Little do we know what was in store for us, though.
And we also got what I consider to be still one of the best gaming trailers I've ever seen, which was that Breath of the Wild launch trailer. Not launch trailer, but the story trailer, I guess.
Pretty much like, you call it a story trailer.
Yeah, I guess you can call it that.
Nintendo's got weird names. They call it like the Switch event trailer. It's like something that like they get really technical on. But great trailer. And it had the release date at the end. Because if you can remember all the way back then, there were those rumors going around about it was being delayed till summer for whatever reasons. And I was like, oh no, it's going to come out in June, right around E3. That's what the rumors are saying. And they come out and like, nope, it's launching on Switch. Also Wii U, same day. And we got some information about the third parties that we're going to be supporting. We got that image that everyone loves to point to now because of how accurate it was, and that this year those games all announced back at the Switch event have pretty much all come out.
I can think of one that hasn't come out.
What hasn't come out yet?
From Software was on that.
I'm not talking about the third party, the list of third party supporters. That image that had like the months and
right,
and then like they had the category of like coming out later this year.
Got it.
Pretty much all of those have come out.
It's been a good year.
Yeah. I would say, I'm kind of curious if either of you thought this back then, if you can remember, because I had a little bit of this reservation until Switch launched. And I get called out of this a lot because people are like, oh, Damiani, you don't ever acknowledge this. It's like, I was a little hesitant about the launch lineup for the Switch after this event. I was like, Zelda's good, but it's also going to be on Wii U. didn't have are we going through this again where Nintendo doesn't have a lot of games ready at launch?
Yeah.
This has been kind of like a stigma against them. Did either of you feel that way, or did you feel pretty? Can you remember? Did you feel satisfied after that event?
I remember, and I fully admit that I was a little skeptical, and not necessarily, I wasn't like doom and gloom, oh, like they're doomed. I just remember thinking, okay, the launch lineup looks a little tepid, $299. I'm not sure if that's the right entry price for them after the Wii U, and I'm just, are we seeing a return to Nintendo's bad habits with Wii U? And then I remember specifically, though, that launch lineup, at the time it sounded like empty PR where they were saying, we're going to fill out that launch lineup in the coming months, just wait. And I was like, okay, we'll see. But then they actually did. Yeah. And then suddenly by the time we got to launch day, it was looking a lot better. Yes. And then so I was happily proven wrong, actually.
I would say I was happily proven wrong as well. What about you, Kyle?
I remember being a little de-hyped because this is also the debut of HD Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And it was the debut of 1-2 Switch.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those were eye rollers in the presentation. And so, and I think at this time we also saw that weird version of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe where it wasn't named Deluxe yet. They just showed people playing Mario Kart, and you could see that you could have 2 items. And so we were like, is it a new game? Is it just Mario Kart 8 again? And so that was kind of unclear. And so it looked like a Wii U port machine already in the debut of it.
Same thing with Splatoon, actually. I think they showed Splatoon 2, and we didn't know yet. We didn't know then that it was Splatoon 2. We were like, what is this exactly? Is it 1.5 or,
Yep.
So I remember being a little cooled off after that, but obviously still extremely excited by the time the system launched.
All right. The concern about it being a Wii U port machine, I think it kind of went away a little bit after launch, but there were some reservations as we did find out some games coming out over the year would be Wii U ports. We'll get those eventually, but that didn't completely go away right at launch. There was still some concern about that, I would argue. But yeah, I think January got everyone pretty excited to an extent for the Switch. At least, even if you were a little de-hyped, you're like, all right, well, it's coming one way or another. And, this is like, can't be any worse than Wii U, right? Right?
Yeah.
Launch? We'll see. But right on the heels of January, February marked another important release. Not for any of Nintendo's consoles or devices, but the release of Fire Emblem Heroes for mobile phones. A gacha-style, free-to-play mobile Fire Emblem that I did the review for it. Yeah. I spent a lot of time with it. Ben Moore spent a lot of time with it. Kyle was not very into it at all. In fact, got very upset whenever I try and talk about it. But from my perspective, I thought it was pretty easy to get into because it was a free-to-play game versus Super Mario Run, which you could try it out, but to get the full experience, you had to buy it. There was no content actually locked behind paywalls with this. It was just the gotcha mechanic of, do you want that hero? Do you want that hero? Keep putting money into the in-game currency to roll again for that hero. And I thought it was a pretty good gateway for new fans to learn about Fire Emblem and possibly go, oh, you want a more in-depth Fire Emblem strategy experience? There are these other great games, especially for 3DS, that you can go and play. Nintendo's still supporting it. I keep getting notifications on my phone, even though I have long since not touched it. It's been months since I touched it. I kind of got my fill of it. And later in the year, it was revealed that this game has actually been more profitable for Nintendo than Super Mario Run. Especially when they do the percentages of how much it costs for Super Mario Run, how much it's brought in versus Fire Emblem, which pretty much is the marketing development cost and bring it back. So it made sense, or I think the signs were there that going forward Nintendo was going to do these types of games, which proved true later in the year when another mobile game came out that we'll get to. Mm-hmm. Did either of you, I actually don't know, Kyle, if you ever actually touched it. What is your experience with Fire Emblem Heroes, and what did you think about this technically the third effort from Nintendo on mobile phones after Miitomo and Super Mario Run?
I actually did the GameXplain preview for Fire Emblem Heroes, so I got kind of an early look at it and kind of hit the ground running with it. And I think I was able to enjoy it from a particular distance. Of all Nintendo's mobile games, Fire Emblem Heroes has been my favorite, and I still duck into it once in a while. I've mostly put it down, like you have said. But I think because I'm not a hardcore Fire Emblem fan, I'm kind of like a casual Fire Emblem fan, so I didn't ever feel the need to drop a scent on pulling certain characters, and I got the characters I like anyway. But more than that, I have to say, even though I'm not a big mobile gacha game player anyway, of all the ones I have played, Fire Emblem Heroes is by far the most generous by like a country mile. It is such a generous game, and even now you log in and you can get 2 to 4 orbs almost daily sometimes just by logging in every day.
Oh yeah, I agree. I never felt like I needed to spend a cent on that game, not because of the skill factor with the heroes, but exactly what you just said right there, that they kept giving me stuff.
They still are.
Unless you were playing like many hours a day. Like I would spend maybe an hour at most a day in that game at my height, maybe 2 hours. I felt like I was continuously being rewarded with the orbs. I'm like, I'm sitting like on 70, 80 orbs. I would like spend half of them just to like spend some and then like come back a week later. I'm right back up at 70, 80 orbs here.
I have like 260 right now. I'm not playing daily anymore, but I just log in just in case I just want to play. I'm just sitting on this bed of orbs and they just give them away like candy. And I'm like, okay, I'm down with gacha games like this because I don't have any reason to spend money if they're just going to give it away like that. So... yeah.
So I think there was a campaign in the game, from what I remember. And Damiani, I played through it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it gets it's funny. The game gets harder because they want you to go grind other modes, and it's kind of designed that way. It's like you take your heroes to the other modes, the other like
like the training tower,
and all that. I didn't get a single 5-star unit the entire time I played the game. And I think I rolled like 20 times. I think I just had extraordinary bad luck. Like that's bad luck on the other side. You're not supposed to do that. I just hated it for that reason. But it's still a huge success. You can't say that game isn't a success. You can't say it was a bad decision on Nintendo's part. I think I don't like the spirit of the game, but it worked.
Yeah, I don't know what much else they could have done for a free-to-play game. To put more effort into it, if they had tried to make it more like even a handheld 3DS Fire Emblem games, I don't know if that's what works the best on your mobile smartphone. So I mean the screen orientation, I know you can turn around and stuff, but like it's touchscreen. What they did I think worked well, like the actual mechanics of it. It was like the simplified one screen for each of the battlefields. They weren't very complex, which made it more accessible, which I think was easier to get into for people. If you didn't like it, that's fine. You still tried it out. Nintendo got people to at least play some of it and try out Fire Emblem, and I tried it out. For people who would be nervous about spending $20, $30, $40 or more dollars on a proper entry, getting into it for free here, if they felt like, I like where this is going, but it's not, I want more, and everyone told them, and they were aware of the other ones, then okay, I can go spend my money on one that is a proven title. That's going to give me more of the more in-depth strategy experience that I've been looking for. And I think in that regard, that's the best aspect of Fire Emblem Heroes.
That it's free?
What?
That it's free?
That is free to play.
Yeah.
Or that serves as a gateway.
I paused for a second because here's the thing. We're going to get into this other game. There's also Echoes. And for a long time I would like use them interchangeably by accident.
Me too.
I was like, Nintendo, can we please? Like Heroes, Echoes are so similar, but then I was like, we'll call one Shadows of Valentia and like that'll be easier. You don't have to call it Echoes. I was like, all right. Then you got Warriors. So anyway, I think that's good. When we get to the other one, Animal Crossing, I'll be interested to see what you feel about that because I did a 180 on that, but I think it might be because of my investment in Animal Crossing versus Fire Emblem.
Yeah, one thing really quick about Fire Emblem Heroes that I thought was surprising and interesting was that it kind of low-key represented Nintendo's, to my knowledge, I think their first time full-on embracing waifu, husbando culture, because some of that art for some of the damaged, and not, both the women and the men, but it's just it's surprisingly, I say racy for Nintendo. It's not racy and in general, but for Nintendo, for them to, for that to be a game attached to one of their major IPs, I was kind of surprised by how edgy some of that damaged character art got for that game.
Oh yeah, and you can scroll through it at any time when you get to the character profiles. You go through all how they would look, the sprites.
Yeah.
So you can see that at any time. And even going beyond that, when they did the seasonal type events or limited time events, they had the bridal outfit
and
ones,
the summer ones,
and the summer swimsuit ones. They had the groom outfits as well, like the tuxedos for the guys, and then swimsuits for everyone there. So they knew how to play neurons. I would say this extends beyond Fire Emblem Heroes. There were a lot of characters throughout the year that I think Nintendo was kind of not they weren't being very edgy in the depiction that some other games get into, but I think there was a version of Nintendo's fan service and some other characters that came throughout the year.
Once we come right back around to December, I guess, is when we're going to talk about that.
I mean, it happened before December. I think actually the next game we're going to talk
Oh,
about
okay.
had some of that.
I don't know what you're hinting
because
at
when we
then.
talk about, I don't really like the term like waifu. I always use it sarcastically. But
Sure.
come March 3rd, Switch launches worldwide with Breath of the Wild being a launch title for it. And I want to talk about, I was alluding to Zelda, her appearance in there. Like the cute Zelda in that game. And then there's a certain scene in one of the cutscenes where she's bending over to pick a flower.
No,
and that went,
that's not the same.
That went
still
viral.
not quite
No,
the
no,
same
no.
thing.
That
I don't
was
think.
I think that was more the fans, obviously, like some fans.
Yeah.
Going a little far at that because that happened with Twin Arms character.
Twintel.
Thank
yeah.
you, Twintel.
Yeah.
That like people kept saying like, what was Nintendo's strategy this year? And they're like, oh, all these great games. And then someone posted a bunch of like artwork from all the games and said like, I was like, fans sometimes some fans get a little ridiculous sometimes. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's not spend so much time on that. That is absurd. March 3rd, Switch launches worldwide.
Yes.
Sells out. I don't. So here's the thing. I don't actually remember how hard it was to get pre-ordering. Do either of you remember the pre-order situation? Because I was able to get multiple to help out people.
Yeah, I think I got 2 Best Buys. I got one for me and one for Don. Like, it wasn't too hard.
Nice.
I got one. I think I pre-ordered like 4 in total in the end, from different retailers because that's how I've been doing it with like rare, like perceived hard to get stuff. Like 2 of them I sold to friends. And the other one I canceled because I had enough time, and then one was for me.
But you're right in that
Nice.
it sold out. It was easy for us to get pre-orders, but it did sell out. So it was hard for anybody trying to buy it day
And
one.
it has been
Right.
selling out, even though I will say throughout the year, it does feel like Reggie and Nintendo, like they promised that there'd be kind of a steady supply. Even though it sells out really quickly, there have been lots of updates. Like I see Wario 64 updating Switches will be in stock tomorrow at Amazon or Walmart or Best Buy. And they might go fast, but like it feels like there's definitely more updates in terms of inventory being restocked than say the Wii a decade ago when it first launched, or more than a decade, in 2006 through 2007. It felt like that was just like impossible to get for, it was even more than a year. It felt like it was almost like 2 years before that started to get like easy to find in stores. So I don't know if that's how it really went, but that's how I remember.
It feels more to me like that's more true of the last couple of months, like more recently. Like I feel like there is that dead zone right following the Switch's release, like maybe April, May, where it felt like they really did have trouble keeping Switches in stock.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've been doing better since October, September. They really have been ramping it up. And I think there is that summer drought where people are like, we want to buy Switches, we can't buy Switches. And in Japan, the situation's even worse with people literally lining up around the block for a lottery, for a chance to buy a Switch. Like, that is crazy to me that Nintendo could not.
Everything I've seen makes it sound like the situation in Japan has been like worse.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I understand.
Here, I think was more of us. A lot of us who are like more of the core audience got ours early. We just see the updates and we don't really like follow it here because we don't go to a store and be like, oh, how are people looking for Switches here?
Yeah.
Whereas like Japan media love to still report on that, and you see it. And you like those lines, as you said, that wasn't even just to get one; it's just to get the lottery ticket to see if you even get the right to the purchase one.
Yeah.
It's like, geez, and that's still going on. And yes, there was that window there. I think it had something to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, or audience, not audience, viewers. We're not live.
It's still an audience, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it technically?
Yeah.
Okay. Viewers, let us know if I thought there was something about the production plant where they were making Switches also shared it with Apple, and Apple was the screens or something. Apple or the production lines that they needed to use to make certain parts for Switch. Apple had reserved a lot of them ready for revamping because they were doing iPhone 8 plus the iPhone X or 10, whatever they call it now. So Switch was actually being limited by that initially, and then once those orders were filled by Apple, I think Switch was able to get like higher production output for the units to help. That's why you saw more stock coming in after that. I don't know if that's true. That's what I remember reading back in like March or April.
I remember reading something about
like
that as well. Yeah.
But I mean, overall though, it felt like it was actually a good launch because of Breath of the Wild. Let's get into Breath of the Wild here. That game, despite any gripes I might have ever expressed about it, like I will still tell you that Breath of the Wild is amazing. And I know it happened recently. I redove back into it recently because of the DLC. I finally decided to go play all the DLC, and I was just reminded of like how good this game actually is. And I just want to clarify by saying, in a nutshell, you go watch my review if you want my like in-depth thoughts about the game, but that game did such an amazing job of taking established Zelda tropes and being like, hey, we're going to use some of them, not all of them, and we're going to give you something different. It's still going to feel like Zelda, but it's going to be different. And Nintendo did an open world style game with a Zelda feel, and it felt just right, and it felt fun. All the critical reviews seem to pretty much agree. I know there's dissenters out there, and I don't want to I want to acknowledge that at least. Like some of the things that I saw that people mostly complained about was either felt it was too boring going around and exploring or something like that. That wasn't like, I like a more Zelda with more direction. I don't want to have to aimlessly wander around. And then some of the backlash about the dungeon designs. Like, oh, there was 120 shrines, the 4 Divine Beast dungeons, but those 4 Divine Beast dungeons didn't necessarily stack up to other 3D Zeldas. Like, where's the theme to them? Anything like that. And it's all subjective. So, Breath of the Wild, now that it's been almost, 8 months, 7 months?
About,
9 months? Long time has passed since the launch of it. How do you feel now about Breath of the Wild? Do you still feel as good about it or as bad about it as he did when it launched?
I still feel as good about it. It's crazy to think about that first day of playing that game.
Yeah.
That first day is something you can never have back, but just getting let loose in that world is just it was remarkable. It was fun. That was probably the most fun day of playing the game, is the first one. Just having that freedom, having that world in front of you, and doing whatever you want along the way. Yeah. And it's just a fun game in that anything you want to do along the way, there are lots of fun options. There are many interesting little paths you can take yourself on.
Yeah, my thoughts on Breath of the Wild have been pretty complicated because I love it, and I want to preface this by saying I spent 140 hours in the game. Obviously, you don't spend that much time with the game you don't love. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I do agree with a lot of the criticism you just brought up. I also think that the story and the characterization is mostly just the epitome of wasted potential. I wanted a better story. I understand the open world design kind of undercuts that. I get it, but at the same time, I just felt like the story was super lacking, and I had the dungeons, again, not the biggest fan because they felt so samey. They don't feel memorable like other 3D Zelda dungeons. But you know what? The moment-to-moment gameplay in that game is just so... There's nothing else like it. It's absolutely brilliant in the way the world just makes sense. Physics work the way you think they will. Things work, and just... You have total... And I don't even like open-world games. That's what's crazy. I have gone on record saying I don't like open-world games. But the way Breath of the Wild did it, and the way... I've had so many discussions with people about how they did this versus how I did this, and the game is full of those moments. And there are as many people who've played Breath of the Wild, there are that many stories of how people got through it. It is completely up to you. And there are very few other games that I can think of that do that so well. So as many issues as I have with Breath of the Wild, as you said, it is astounding, as you both said. It's a fantastic game.
Thinking about it now, the months after it's released, the thing that impresses upon me most about Breath of the Wild is the authority, the ability to choose what I want to do with that game at any moment. And you both talked about it a little bit, but basically the fact that I could go off any direction, do what I want, see what was out there, and the game wouldn't necessarily tell me, hey, why don't you go back over here? Like, you shouldn't be going this way. That's always bad. Like, always reference, like, whenever that comes up, people are like, can that be bad? I'm like, well, there's a game called, Dark Souls, where everyone goes into the graveyard first, or initially with the skeletons, and that's game's way of telling you, you technically can go this way, but you really shouldn't go this way. You're not really ready for it. Barring something like that, which wasn't really in Breath of the Wild, I felt, I just love that experience of being able, I wanted to try it. There was one moment where I was following the storyline. I got to Kakariko Village, and I'm like, I don't want to go to the next village. I want to go around and see how much of the world I can see right now. Am I going to find new shrines? Am I going to, what will I discover? And the next significant amount of time in the game, I was just going around trying to activate all the towers. Mm-hmm. I love the shrines. I do lament the quality of the Divine Beast dungeons. And I do think I would personally like some kind of compromise between shrine count, which I get. The shrines were there to help reward you for going off and exploring. One of the many tools they had to do that. But I would like to see in the future better themed, more robust. We'll use robust.
Sure, good word.
Dungeons there. That's not the greatest word.
So I'm confused.
What?
This is an aside. This doesn't have to do with March. Sure. When they announced the DLC, when they announced like the first ever the pass, didn't they say there would be a new dungeon in the final DLC?
Yes, they did.
Did they say that?
Yeah, they said one new dungeon and new story.
So is there a new dungeon I haven't found yet?
So there,
or are they counting the mini like the challenges as a dungeon?
No. The Trial of the Sword is DLC 1.
Yeah.
But if you do the new story DLC, if you begin that quest line, the very end of it,
there's going to be a dungeon.
There is a Divine Beast like dungeon.
Okay.
It's
cool.
It's more Divine Beast like than like it's not. Don't think of it as something like a traditional 3D Zelda dungeon. It's less like that. It might be a little bit. Yeah, it's still got all the tropes of the Divine Beast, like the dungeon mechanic. There's a dungeon mechanic there.
Got it.
There's a boss battle. I would say the boss battle is probably more of what Breath of the Wild could have used was that type of boss battle.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I'm excited to hop back in.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, but
cool.
yeah.
All right.
There were some good things in there, but like you talked about, Ashley, you talked about the story.
Yes.
And I always temper my criticisms of Zelda's story by saying like it's something I'm very invested in. And you do not need to be invested in story at all, really, in Zelda games to get like the full, the most enjoyment out of them. I don't think that is the best element of Zelda games, but it is something they have done well in the past. So for my argument here, the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I think both have really good stories. Like the Wind Waker story might be the best story, single game story of any Zelda game. I won't ever take that away from it. And I did not feel like I had that type of enrichment in terms of the narrative in Breath of the Wild. And I kind of temper that by saying they were trying so much different with the open nature of this game, letting you go in different directions that they even said themselves in a lot of the development videos that came out afterwards, we struggled with how do we present narrative to you in a way that still encourages you and allows you to have the freedom to go do what you want and not kind of even subtly dictate where you should be going. I think there's a balance to be struck there possibly. That's obviously the developer's job to figure out if they want to do that and how to implement it. But playing the Champions Ballad DLC, that story behind the characters that you'll get, the four champions and Zelda, I was like, I felt that should have been in the main game to begin with. That's a whole argument about like why this was even made DLC. But at the same time, it felt like such wasted potential with these four great characters. Now that I've played the Champions Ballad DLC and seen their full backstory and development, I was like, there's like this camaraderie that's supposed to be there that they're telling me about, and in the actual main venture of Breath of the Wild, I don't ever get to really directly experience it. It's being told to me, it happened. You all are these like good buddies and stuff. And it doesn't have any kind of real payoff unless you do the 4 divine dungeons and they show up at the end to like use their power for a second. It's like, there's so much more left on the table. I feel like that hopefully, it's because they said they're going to continue to make 3D Zelda games like Breath of the Wild style, open air, I believe is their term for it. And I hope that's something they aim for in the next one.
Me too. I think you can encapsulate the problem with Breath of the Wild story kind of in one kind of statement, and that is everything interesting happens off screen. It's the same problem that Final Fantasy 15 had. I love that game to a point, but the story was a mess, and in the same way I think Zelda's is. And look, I get it. I get that for this open air Zelda game, the gameplay structure had to come first and the story had to work in service of that, and I totally get it. But you just talked about Wind Waker. That's probably my favorite Zelda game of all time, along up there with A Link to the Past, and that had a fantastic story that I think holds up to this day. But I'm not even talking about like the cutscene style of storytelling. I think you go back to a game like Link's Awakening, and that game tells its story to you in the most heartbreaking ways through gameplay, through the game, through incredible environmental cues and character cues. You don't need cutscenes to tell a great story, and Link's Awakening proves that, in my opinion. And that's, I think Breath of the Wild still, I obviously had that open air structure that undercut the story, but I look for a little more characterization from my Zelda games. And the thing is, you touched on it, I like the champion. I really like most of the champions, and I wanted to see more of them. I wanted to see more of 100 years ago. I wanted to see them interacting with Link and Zelda. by the time you do anything in Breath of the Wild, they've been gone for 100 years. They've been dead. Like, those are cool characters. I want to see more of them, you know? And Zelda is so known for strong characterization, and I just feel like you lose some of that with the open-air structure in Breath of the Wild, but I totally get that was the point, that was the first what they were going for.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
I think you could blame the direction a little bit, though, too. Like, you know, you go to the Goron city, and there's the young Goron. You know what I mean?
Yunobo. Yeah, I think his name is.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we don't get attached to it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, Yiga clan, Kyle.
Yiga, yeah.
I didn't, everyone was like, Dominic doesn't know it. I knew it. I just didn't want you to know it.
No,
It's
that's
like,
not true.
poor Kyle.
But I think even like I feel like some of in the voice acting direction, some of the voice actors were told they're in a cartoon. You know what I mean? Just like some of the deliveries are just like, "Hey, little guy,
Yeah.
let's do it," and it's just like,
I agree.
That's such a weird take on it. And I feel like the director said, "Yeah, that's great. That's what we're looking for here." When I don't think that was. I think the game could have like had a more. Just in the tone of the voice acting could have actually been more effective in more subdued voice acting like that.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you on the voice acting, everything you said there. And to go a little bit more on what you said earlier, I feel like I remember when we had our big discussion, Kyle, our group discussion, and I heard the arguments about like how people love the amnesia story like element for Link, that like he's got to remember everything, otherwise everything would be explained. Like that's the mystery. And I don't think my problem is I don't think the payoff was worth that.
Yeah.
And I think everything that happened 100 years ago should have just been the main story. I think that like Link didn't have to like lose, or if he did lose, he didn't like what happened to him didn't like require him 100 years. I think going on an adventure with his comrades and stuff, and like helping him out in the dungeons and stuff, like building those relationships, there was like a good payoff I felt to have that. And maybe they could, as I said, maybe they failed in their first attempt, and that's like the halfway point. Like that's like the light world version. Now they're in the dark world because they didn't, not literally, people.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about like thematically here. Like it could have gone like really dark and stuff. You didn't need to have 100-year gap. Link needs to recover for 100 years, and like the world's changed so much. I know people like that theme to an extent because like Hyrule's mostly ruins, like it's old, it's aged and stuff, and it makes for better exploration. But at the same time, they gave us all these characters and all this the voice work. They put voice work in the significant voice work for the first time in a Zelda game, and I just don't think, one, it wasn't all well executed. As you said, some of the direction wasn't there for it, and the payoff ultimately isn't worth it for it. It was just a big missed opportunity for me. I want to real quick. I know I've been pretty negative so far.
Yeah.
I do want to say like the shrines. I love the physics-based puzzles in Zelda. I know there are people out there who played other physics-based puzzle games, and they're like, oh, I've seen this before. I played games like this, but it was nice seeing in Zelda because it was something a little bit different, and the fact that there were so many different ways you can do them.
Yes.
In fact, Nintendo's like, we knew people would, as Damiani would put it, cheese these things.
Yeah.
They would use cheese tactics to get around stuff, but we encouraged them, and we knew they would do all these things. And it's like, that's great. Like, I love that. I love when developers don't get too strung up and fixated on there has to be one absolute solution for this. I spent so much time creating this puzzle, you got to figure it out this way. And when someone sells it differently, you're like, Urgh.
So my favorite stuff is like dropping a sword to conduct electricity, and you can like make a chain that way. There's just like it's fun how creative you can be with the puzzles.
Using stasis and magnesis to do some fun stuff. It's like I love those two things. I know some people complain there weren't enough items in the game, but man, magnesis and stasis provided a lot of fun for me that lasted over the 100+ hours I played through that game.
More than a hook shot ever could.
Yeah. Do you really want to hook shot easily up to that point, or would you like to use stasis to make a platform and then jump on it, but then you gotta like hit it a bit to give some momentum to like launch it? I was like, come on, like that was way more interesting than a hook shot would ever be. But
well, I gotta say, they were doing an interview, I think, about the Champion's Ballad, about the Master Cycle Zero, and they were talking about how they actually were testing out hook shots where you could like grapple around Hyrule like Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. That sounds awesome to me. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not saying stasis and magnesis aren't really cool, but Spider-Manning around Hyrule sounds pretty cool.
If they could do some kind of evolution of like what they did in Twilight Princess with a double claw shot, where you were hanging on walls.
That
and,
was cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. There's some game ideas for there. I mean, they even had the crazy thing of like originally it was gonna be like aliens or something. The video of Link in a field and a UFO shows up and drops the enemies. Like there were some crazy ideas for that, but despite story gripes and some stuff, like it's still an excellent achievement of a game. Holy crap!
Absolutely.
And they can only go up from here because they could take. Hopefully, they take any of those criticisms to heart and just keep improving it for the next one. I can not wait to see what they do with the next 3D Zelda. It's gonna be amazing. We spent a lot of time in Switch and launch, but that was a big moment.
It was the biggest month of the year.
It had to do well.
It was the big one, yeah.
Because let's not forget, like the Wii U. Even if you love Wii U, the hardware and the software that came out with it, there were a lot of good games on Wii U. It just did not put up the sales at all. It was not very good. It was like when you're getting compared to GameCube and Dreamcast, something like I love GameCube, but even I know like that system didn't sell the best. Like company, you need to sell. It doesn't matter how good of a quality product. If it doesn't sell, company's not going to keep supporting it.
Yeah, really quick, Breath of the Wild's obviously incredible, but I have to give a quick shout out to my other favorite Switch launch title, which was Shovel Knight Specter of Torment.
Yeah, that counts.
That debuted on Switch.
Yeah.
And
if Brad were here, he'd be like, Damiani, how dare you forget that game?
that game was fantastic, and I love there's a cheat code that the Yacht Club guys released a couple of months later where it actually replaces Specter Knight's wall jumping mechanics with X and zeros, like you're playing a Mega Man X game, and it was the coolest thing, and I'm just like, so that all
This is the
taken
first
together.
I'm hearing of this.
Yeah, so
That's so cool.
there's go look them up. There are cheat codes you can enter, and it'll Specter Knight will just wall jump like X does in the Mega Man X games. It's so
fun.
good.
That's
So
really
I got to
fun.
give a shout out to Specter of Torment. I love that game.
When's King Knight happening?
Next early, I think spring 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, King of Cards.
That's what it's. Yeah, they said
Dang.
for that.
Yeah.
We played a bit. I mean, just give them a little bit of shout out because they did exist. 1-2-Switch, Snipper Clips. We played a bunch of that in our group streams here at Easy A. We got some fun of it. Everyone got to laugh at me being, stubborn and trying to play it a certain way. Because I like to see things can happen. We can do it. I push games sometimes like that.
Snipper Clips is great. That what a great
Good launch
concept.
title.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good launch
And
title.
they just did the not just, but it was pretty recently the
Plus,
Snipper
Snipper Plus.
version,
Yeah,
version,
yeah.
There's something we haven't talked about yet that will come up now that we're in April.
Okay.
The 3DS still exists, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got a game, Fire Emblem Echoes.
Yeah.
Valentia. Ben Moore reviewed it. He loved it.
Yeah.
He was telling everyone you really should don't discount this game. You really should play it. And it reviewed pretty well. And it actually sold pretty decently. The fact that everyone's like, hey, 3DS still around, why they don't need to discontinue it. Much to I love Huber, and I sometimes sympathize with him on the I wish every game was available on Switch, but I don't think they only need to be on Switch. So this is a game that I'm gonna start here. Let's start the discussion. I was a little upset that this game didn't come out on Switch. I didn't need it to not come out on 3DS. Sure, come out on 3DS. I just wanted to play literally the 3DS version on my Switch somehow at that point. I was like, I don't want to go back to my 3DS. So with the Switch launch, how did you feel about having to go back, if you even did ever, to your 3DS? Was it tough? Did you ever wish that, hey, I wish everything was just on Switch like I did? Do you ever think about that?
It was fine for me in April, and it was fine for me. We'll get to Metroid. It's been fine all year. I love my 3DS still. I think it's still a cool machine. I have no problems keeping it around, keeping it plugged in. And just for Tetris on it, I'll probably keep it for years, for 5 years, I love that machine still.
Yeah, I have to say, I've said for a long time, I really love the 3DS as a machine, and I'm actually one of the few that really loves stereoscopic 3D. I keep that 3D slider knocked up every time.
Yes.
Yes. All the time.
When I was playing any through Mario and Yooka-Laylee recently on Switch undocked, I get angry that there's no 3D slider because I love playing portable 3D platformers with the 3D on 3DS spoiled me. It made my depth perception, judging jumps, easier because on that small screen, it was like a nice handicap for not having a bigger screen. And you just reminded me of that. I was like, Switch doesn't have that, so it is frustrating sometimes for me, which is odd.
Straight up, I just did a preview on GameXplain for Mutant Mud's collection, and I love the Mutant Mud series, but immediately you lose that jumping from layer to layer, that awesome 3D effect. And it's great that these games are on Switch too, but so the 3DS still, has a special place in my heart. However, I gotta say, that's why I'm a little surprised that it actually has been a little hard for me to go back to the 3DS. I didn't get a chance to play Fire Emblem Echoes because I just didn't have time.
Sure.
But I did play Metroid Samus Returns, and I'm glad I did. It was a great game, but I really wanted to play it on Switch. As incredible as those 3D effects are, I just really, going back and holding and looking at the 3DS doesn't feel as good anymore. The Switch is so elegant. It's just such an elegant handheld, and I love that screen, and it is, I'm spoiled. I have to say, a perfect, well, we'll get there. I won't mention another 3DS game. I will get there. But
mine's a practical complaint. I just didn't want to carry around two handhelds. I already have a nice carrying case
Yeah.
for Switch, and I already have my mobile phone. So carrying a Switch is already like a big undertaking for me. It's like I'm taking an extra thing with me today, but like I want to play that Switch. If I had to bring 3DS with me, it's just like I wouldn't. It's like in the pecking order, it's like my phone, Switch,
Yeah.
and 3DS. And it's just it's a convenience thing right now. That's all it is. I love the 3DS. It's an amazing system, amazing games on it, but it's now competing for my physical space when I'm traveling or moving around with Switch and my phone. And that's why I just don't understand why Nintendo, I hope at some point, they said they're going to keep supporting 3DS through 2018, which is good for 3DS owners, because there are some people out there who get a little annoyed whenever any of us at EZA suggest Nintendo needs to pull the plug on 3DS and just move everything to Switch. People are like, it's still a good system. I only have a 3DS right now. I haven't got a Switch yet. Like, stop advocating pulling support on systems immediately when a new one comes out. Some great games come out on systems well after their successor releases. Look at PS2 games that came out on PS2 after PS3.
Yeah,
it's like
it almost always happens.
Yeah, it always happens. So it's like I understand that sentiment. I'm just advocating for the release of a game on both. Sure. They don't need to do any kind of special up-resing or anything. Like, I will accept the lower fidelity graphics on the Switch of a 3DS port just for the fact that I can play it on my Switch on the go and don't have to bring two physical systems with me.
I'll give you an example of a crazy one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're not sticking to our timeline. Mario Party Top 100.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's where I was.
That should be on Switch.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That should be on Switch.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh, yeah.
I was actively upset that game was not on Switch. I'm like, I mean, I love the 3DS. I'm down for it to be on both, but I was talking about it with Andre, and he and I were we were actively angry. Like, Nintendo, why isn't... I want to play... I'm not going to get 3 other friends together with their 3DSs to play Mario Party. We want to play it on the Switch, on the TV. Mm-hmm. That was made for that.
They must be saving it, right? They must be saving Mario Party Switch to be a big deal.
Mario Party 11.
Nintendo probably knows a little bit better because they know their lineup. So who knows? It's too early to judge that.
But that seemed crazy. That was a crazy one.
I'll close out on that, saying that, like, for my part, that I think it's still good they're supporting 3DS. Yeah. And we'll get to other games later on it. Sure. But April, it wasn't just Fire Emblem and 3DS. Another game came out, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, at the end of April. And I think this is an important title because I think prior to the release of this game, there were some people, and I'm going to point to myself, who were a little concerned about, are they just an easy cash in? Because Mario Kart 8 is it's like an easy port, and they didn't have enough of a lineup for their launch window, so they're just throwing this out there to kind of occupy April to buy themselves more time. But I will admit, I always saw the other side of it, and in the end, I was completely convinced. Such a great decision to put this out because one, as I argued earlier, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't side with this. Wii U didn't sell well, which means Wii U games software was hindered by that smaller install base. So giving the Wii U games a second chance on Switch is a great thing because some of these games, one, in my opinion, deserved better sales. They would have sold better on any other system, and they did enough. They added enough to it. They bundled everything, all the DLC together and stuff. All the add some extra stuff in there as well. Some tweaks. I know people complained about the online functionality at first. There were some issues with that, but they eventually patched it up and supposedly fixed it. It was a very good release, I think, for that system. And sales-wise and critical acclaim, kind of agree with that.
I didn't remember this being the second month. So now I'm thinking they probably did announce this back in January.
Oh, yeah.
They did.
Okay.
It was somewhere early in the year.
Okay.
I don't know if it was at the January event, but it was definitely like... Because even in the October event, they showed a quick clip of
that's what I was thinking
King
about.
Boo
It was that
or whatever.
clip. Yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay. But that's why everyone's
That's where I got
guessing, is
mixed
it
up.
a new one or not? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was genius. And I think it sold very, very well.
It did.
Oh, it's the second best-selling Switch game to date, right behind Breath of the Wild. Until Nintendo releases Odyssey's complete sales data, we don't have online sales or eShop sales yet, so that could not be accurate as now. But as of now, as best our knowledge,
Cool. Mario
8's
Kart.
yeah.
Sure.
No, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, great release, and you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, the Wii U it was so undersold, had such a small audience, but there were some fantastic Wii U exclusives that deserve a bigger audience. Mario Kart 8 being one of them, and you could go down the list, Tokyo Mirage Sessions and Wonderful 101 and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, the Wii U, there's so many Wii U exclusives that deserve to be played more. Mario Kart 8 obviously was one of them, and I think it, even beyond it being, underplayed on Wii U, I do think that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of the best Mario Kart games yet in the series. just in terms of pure gameplay, track selection. I do wish they had added a couple more single-player cups, like Grand Prix Cups 4. I remember being very disappointed that it was only battle mode and no new Grand Prix cups.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, that was disappointing, but otherwise I think it was a great fully featured release that really patched the major gaping wound from Mario Kart 8, which was the battle mode.
Yeah, that original not great battle mode on
Yeah.
it. At this point, like I do think Mario Kart 8 is near the top of my pecking order for best Mario Karts. Like the only thing, this is such a big aside, like what could we do to Mario Kart to make it better? Mario Kart DS's challenge stuff, mission boss battle, mission mode stuff. I would love to see that come back someday, but maybe they're saving it for Mario Kart 9 or whatever they got going. 8 is very good without it. It doesn't need it, but if they're looking for someone to improve, I'd love to see that. After 8's release, I would say that I had some small concerns still about whether or not they were going to try. Part of me thought it'd be genius every now and then if it was not used, if it wasn't overindulged. The Wii U port stuff, because I think at this point, or at least by E3, we knew there were more coming. There was Pokken. I forget when we found out that Pokken Tournament DX was coming out and be coming out in the fall. That I was like, okay, that's an interesting one, but I guess that one didn't sell very well on Wii U, but Nintendo still pushing for it in esports a bit makes sense. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I think it's a good place to talk about this as well. At the Game Awards, they announced Bayonetta 1 and 2, which specifically 2 really needed to come. I was like, that game needs to come out on Switch because there's been a long-running rumor that something from Platinum, because even Platinum themselves teased the stuff about, something's coming. Bayonetta 2 deserves better sales and needs to be played by more people. I remember the initial reaction. I was like, "Oh, it's going to Wii U. That's it. I hate you. Why is it not coming? They need to port it."
Yeah.
But 1 and 2 on Switch, I already said at some point. I forget what might have been on the podcast, Kyle, the most recent one. I thought I said those will be the best-selling versions of the game. 2 won't even be close. It's going to sell well better. But 1, I think, will probably sell the best on Switch. Even better than the Steam versions that sold pretty well recently when that was re-released. But obviously 3 coming out. So I think, to get back to my argument, I think it's okay to go back to certain Wii U games sparingly.
And that's what it was all year long. It was sparingly.
And that is what they seemed to be doing so far.
Yeah.
I think the concern was it might be a crutch for that system because they're like, Wii U didn't do well. Let's just put everything on Switch immediately and give them a second chance, which is not what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Mario Maker's coming. We know there's a completely refreshed Mario Maker coming to the Switch specifically for it. They got to be working on that. And then of course we don't know exactly what form Smash 5 is going to take yet, but that's coming, and that's probably going to have at least, hopefully, most of the roster from Smash 4, and at least get people. Again, that was an underplayed Smash game because it was on the Wii U, and in my opinion, the best Smash game. So get that incredible roster in front of the Switch's huge audience. You get that many more people getting to play Cloud versus Mega Man versus whoever in a Smash game.
I definitely agree with all that. I think they've done it tastefully.
Sure.
Is the way I want to put it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Another checkbox on the things they're doing right there. Moving into May. I'm sorry if I've skipped anything, but May for me, the release that drew my attention was Ultra Street Fighter 2 from Capcom.
Oh. Okay.
Because this is actually important.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was some people like, okay, whoop-de-doo. This is the extent of Capcom's support.
Yes.
Another port of Street Fighter 2, and it's supposedly the Ultimate Edition, and it's got a gimmicky throw Hadouken mode or whatever.
Which was awful.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Even Capcom was surprised by this. When the dust cleared after its release, after everyone bashed it in reviews and stuff, saying, what a waste of time or something.
And waste of money. It was expensive, too.
Yeah.
The price.
$40.
Yeah.
But even with that $40 price tag, Ultra Street Fighter 2 sold very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Capcom's like, wait a second. Why is this selling so well? In fact, I may be wrong, and viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read recently when Infinite's sales came out that apparently in the U.S., Ultra Street Fighter 2 is sold better. Or somewhere Ultra Street Fighter 2, some territory Ultra Street Fighter 2 has sold better than Infinite.
Oh, no.
Which is like, to Capcom, it's got to be like, really? Might have been Japan where it got outsold by Ultra Street Fighter 2.
Sure.
Anyway, Capcom got woke up by this. This started a chain of events where with the continuing continual success of Switch throughout the year, Capcom as well as other third parties like, it was okay. Let's be real here. Third party publishers were totally within their rights and were smart to be a little hesitant about supporting Switch out of the gate.
Sure.
A lot of hesitant.
Burnt on Wii U hard. There was a good amount of support initially, but not a lot of it translated into like big sales. So even when a system sells well, it's like, But I think the sales data for the software was the final, like that was the point, the boiling point, the catalyst for, okay, that's the sign we were looking for. Greenlit stuff to start coming on Switch, ports or original titles, and you're starting to see that more through the year now.
I actually want to toss one in here that I think is really interesting.
Sure.
It was a launch title of Bomberman R.
Oh yeah.
There's this idea of like a really just kind of low budget Konami Bomberman game selling so well. They continue to support that as well, which is crazy. That I think is a really, really interesting story actually, in that Konami obviously wasn't making a lot of Bomberman games that were huge successes, but because it was a launch title, because people were willing to play new games on Switch, that game actually really sold very well, and Konami was rewarded for being in there on day one.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought up Ultra Street Fighter 2 because I found that to be an interesting release as well. I did the review on GameXplain, and we were shocked by the numbers that review did. It was like one of our most watched reviews.
Really? So there was just a lot of interest,
a lot of interest. And for Ultra Street Fighter 2, where even the two new characters were just Evil Ryu and Violent Ken, who had been, they've been in other games before, and they're just Ryu and Ken again. So, like, there was a surprising amount of interest in that game, and I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about Capcom reacting, because and you might already know I'm like a giant Mega Man fan, and there were a lot of angry fans giving Capcom a lot of crap for Legacy Collection 1 and 2 not initially being announced for Switch, and I'm feeling a little vindicated here because I'm like, guys. They didn't have Switch dev kits when Legacy Collection 1 was in development, and they were only now figuring out what the Switch was actually doing well during 2. Like, give them time to react, and fast forward to December, and of course they did. It's just like, these companies need time to react, and they got burned on Wii U. If I was in charge of Capcom's purse strings, I wouldn't have supported Switch out of the gate either. Like, why would you?
Switch needed to prove itself, not just like it could sell out, move a lot of units, but that third-party software could move on that. And it wasn't just Mega Man Collection; like even the Disney Afternoon Collection was absent from Switch. I was like, that made so much sense.
And that's something that's still absent. I hope they get around to doing something about that.
That would make sense. I don't know if that will happen at this point, but we'll see. But yes, as he alluded to, or we pointed out, jumping to the end of the year, Capcom announced Mega Man 11 coming to all the platforms pretty much, including Switch.
Yep.
Like I think that's their first new announced title that is it's on Switch day and date with everything
also
else.
Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. They just announced
and 30th
that
anniversary at the Capcom Cup as well. Those two versions will probably be the best selling versions. Mega Man 11 definitely will. I'm saying Mega Man 11 will sell the best on Switch.
On Switch.
Mega Man 11 will sell the best on Switch.
No doubt, Mega Man 11.
Really?
Street Fighter will not.
I'm close. No, I'll take Street Fighter.
If they can get a good, there's already the Hori stick. Hori stick. If they can get, if the major stick makers can get good controllers and sticks on Street Fighter in time, possibly.
Yeah.
But it will, if it's not the top selling, PlayStation 4 might be the best selling version of it
for the Street Fighter collection.
For Street Fighter, Switch will be 2.
Yeah.
Switch will be right behind it. They will be vying for that top spot.
Wow. I think you're right, actually.
I agree.
I was willing to say that's crazy, but I think you're right.
Mega Man 11's absolutely going to sell best on Switch, no doubt.
Nintendo needs to push some even though I want to throw some exclusives at Capcom for that or something, would be like Amiibo.
Yep.
I don't want to talk too much about
your
Amiibo.
Mega Man Amiibo will work.
Amiibo was a good storyline for
sure.
2017
That's
in
true.
a nutshell. Hard to find. Nintendo really needs to work on getting... but recently, though, a lot of them have come back in stock. So it sounds like Nintendo finally, or at least in some regards, is starting to restock them and realizing that, hey, they're the last ones left because all the other Toys of Life stuff are shut down now. They're the last one standing. So hopefully they're like, oh, people like Amiibo. We're doing something right. Make more.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving along. Third-party storyline will be important through the rest of the year. But that was Ultra Street Fighter was the first big, I think, release that pointed towards what was going to happen with the Switch. But come June, we had a little event called E3 that happened.
Yeah.
Another event that we'd be looking forward to for both new Switch news and possible third-party stuff. E3 for me, for Nintendo Switch, there's a lot of news, a lot of stuff. But looking back on it now, it was the Super Mario Odyssey show. As in, everyone wanted to play that game. Mm-hmm. That trailer was amazing.
The hat trailer.
The hat trailer.
Yeah.
Holy
Sure
crap. The booth they had set up was completely like New Donk City. Welcome to New Donk City.
Oh, great booth.
So many. It was just like a
They hired
madhouse.
Disney people to make that booth.
Oh, they definitely hired Disney. Like Bob Iger was like personally contacted by Miyamoto or by Koizumi, sorry.
Yeah.
And was like, we want to make this happen.
Yeah.
And they're like, sure, we'll get our best Disney Imagineers on the project right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that Cappy trailer was also the first time the world heard Jump Up Superstar, which was the first
theme song.
Yeah, and like you'd never heard something like that in a Mario game before. Like you had never associated like a jazzy vocal theme.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you get this just little drop that, oh, by the way, it's Mayor Pauline singing it. Like, what is going on here? That was such a great trailer. The way it was almost like a re-reveal of Mario Odyssey, and it absolutely set the tone for Nintendo's E3. It was so good.
It showed a great amount of creativity that Nintendo still could do something that shocked, like in a good way, shocked us and dazzled us. But at the same time, it just looked so fun. It felt like Nintendo was having a good time, just having fun for once in a while. But that wasn't even the only thing that came out of E3. Let's go down the list here. We talked about it a little bit earlier, so let's get this one out of the way. Metroid Samus Returns was announced. It's like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah.
So that's what was going on. Maybe like we'll get into it when we get to the release, but they announced basically a remake of the Game Boy Advance, not Game Boy Advance, Metroid 2 Samus Returns for a Return of Samus for Game Boy. Sorry, I got that all wrong, but I corrected myself in the end. And then Metroid Prime 4 teased.
Yeah.
Finally, it was just a logo with some music, but it's coming. It's coming. Pokemon Switch was confirmed. I think, Kyle, you were like, that was the worst reveal because it's a guy. It was just Junichi Masuda.
Or I think it was actually the other.
It was,
I can't remember his name.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I know who you were talking about.
I don't think it was.
It wasn't Masuda.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
So the original guy, Satoshi something?
No, it wasn't Satoshi Tajiri, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, like, it's on.
Yeah, but I know who you're talking because I interviewed Masuda and him for Sun and Moon.
Oh, cool.
He's like the director of the Pokemon.
Yes,
I can't remember his name, and I feel awful.
Yeah. We're gonna get.
I'll look it up.
You're gonna get roasted, Kyle, unless you look it up. Nice. Anyway, it was just like in his office. Like, we're working on it. It's gonna take some time, and it was like basically maybe 2018, could be later. He said like a year, maybe longer. Right. At the least.
Well, and I remember in context, the reason they did that was, or at least the reason I think they did that was a knee-jerk reaction to what was considered a very poor, tepid response to, I think it was the initial Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon reveal. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what? Direct for that. Yeah.
I realized that happened like the week before. It was Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and Pokken DX.
And people thought it was going to be Pokemon Stars.
It was like end of May or beginning of June they did that direct. Yep.
And they were like, that was when the rumors about Pokemon Stars had been making the rounds.
It was like critical mass. Like, oh, it's happening at E3. And they're like,
and then it didn't.
The rumor now is like the more evolved rumor now is that the stars, Moon Stars or whatever Pokemon Stars was just a tech demo of Ultra Moon and Sun running on Switch, but that was just like a proof of concept that the what they're talking about now is like a more like radical Pokemon or like a console Pokemon.
Right. That won't be an Alola. That will be a whole new.
Okay, what do you got for us, Cal?
Shigeru Omori.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. That exactly.
The heavy hitters keep coming out. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 trailer, which confirmed it's coming out in 2017. It's like, hey, we promised this. It's happening.
I still didn't believe
no one.
that.
I didn't either. No one did.
I was like, there's still time for that release date to slip.
Yeah,
wasn't confirmed to that direct later in the year. But Mario and Rabbids at Ubisoft's event.
Oh my goodness!
Because this was a huge. This had been rumored and leaked basically in May. Everything came out. Like the images came out, the marketing slides came out. Like everyone knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. But I think the problem was, and this is the one time I was just like completely in support of Jones. Brandon Jones loves to say that no game should ever be spoiled. The reveal should always be done by the company on their time, on their terms. He hates leaks.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And this is the one of the few times I sided with him because in the end, because those slides and everything made it sound like a terrible idea. Like the stuff about the humor and the characters, Like you should know better. If you ever read something from marketing people, no, they usually write stuff in a way that appeals the most to corporate people, but never to fans. It's not written for consumers and fans. It's written to get people who are higher ups and executives excited about stuff, and they use a lot of lingo and jargon that don't excite consumers and fans.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's revealed Ubisoft was a huge positive stroke for Nintendo in the Switch, because having Miyamoto come out stage on there to basically with the little rabbit gun or whatever the which gun he came out with. He came out with a gun. I was like, isn't the old thing about Miyamoto hates guns or something?
This was a hand cannon. Very different.
Very different. And the game looked amazing. That's the thing. Yves Guillemot, right? Or am I getting that?
Yeah, he was out there too.
He was out there too. Such a great moment. And then they pointed to one of the developers from Milan, Ubisoft Milan, right?
Right. The team was working on
that. Was working on it, and one of the lead developers, and he was almost like breaking down in tears, thinking that goes, this was something you could tell at that moment. You could tell this wasn't a joke. Like, this wasn't a bad game. Yeah. They were putting effort into it. Everything looked great, and I think that was like one of the most important things actually coming out of E3, because that was technically a third-party title, a big AAA third-party title, and Nintendo was actually licensing out their IP to them and letting them have full, pretty much control over it. It was it was like a signal that Nintendo was willing to take risk with their own IP by letting other companies work on it, and they technically done that before, but this one is like, this works. They get it. It was such a good thing.
And what's strange is on paper, it was not. Like, on paper, you would think, how the hell is Mario and Rabbids not going to be anything but a dumpster fire? Yes. And then it comes out, and it's like, everyone's like, whoa, this game's great. And you can tell that so much love went into the game. And I mean, I think we were all pretty much in agreement that there's no way a Mario and Rabbids game should be. Like, I'm not a Rabbids fan at all. Like, who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
No. But then it came out, and it was like you got Rabbid Peach taking selfies, and I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, they did it. Okay, Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah, like, when we get into the release, I'll talk more about why I think the game was actually good and worked, but, like, just this announcement, yes. Mm-hmm. Like, everything about this was right, and please just remember this as a moment. Like, if you ever think something on paper sounds horrible, keep that down in the back of your mind, and that piece of evidence you have is Mario and Rabbids. Just remember Mario and Rabbids to be like, that was the one time, and it was a big time, a huge mark for basically, wait till you see it. You know, don't judge a book by its cover.
Plus,
go ahead.
Oh, so I got to say, they made the perfect decision in getting Grant Kirkhope to do the music.
Oh, yes.
Perfect choice for that. His style was absolutely the perfect choice for that game.
It was Kirkhope and who else?
Was there some? I thought it was just Kirkhope.
I thought two of the songs, because Ubisoft, the Donkey Kong theme and the Donkey Kong song that plays during the Donkey Kong boss battle and something else were not his, I think.
The opera?
I don't know if it was the opera.
I don't think it was David Wise, right? I don't think they collaborated on it.
I'm just trying to give credit where credit was due. Yeah. But yes, Kirkhope's, wow.
And you can really hear it. Because actually, I'm pretty sure Kirkhope wrote the opera too, actually.
It's not the opera song I'm thinking of. Okay. I'm trying to remember the embargo information, because Ubisoft pointed out two songs. Like,
that you couldn't
we can't help you out if you use those because they might get flagged. Like, they were basically someone Nintendo did them.
Sure.
It was Nintendo's end.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, like, fantastic. I even felt like the soundtrack, I'll save it for when it comes out, or when we get to August. Coming up soon. Was there anything else from E3 that surprised either? Yeah, that's pretty much what I jotted down before we move on to the next big title, which came out the same week as E3.
Which is what?
ARMS!
Yes.
Oh, yes!
Yeah, ARMS came out during E3 Blitz.
I was lost
that
there.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Came out that Friday after E3. ARMS. A fighting game, which is a brand new IP for Nintendo. So very early on in Switch's life, we're getting a brand new IP. Mm-hmm. It was, I will say, like, we played it. The only time I really played it was on our group stream, the tournament.
Yeah.
And I had fun. I had a blast playing it. I felt like after one match, I fought Huber first, and he obliterated me. But, like, even in that match, I was able to pick up. I was like, I get how to play this now. It took me one match to get it. Mm-hmm. Next match, I was like, I get all the mechanics now. And I like that about it. And I felt it was a pretty good effort from them. And I want to say the two biggest takeaways I took from ARMS, from Nintendo, is that they're continuing to support it for free. It's getting new characters and balance updates. every so often, no more expense to the consumer for it. So that means they're doing all the right. That's a very good thing to do to show people you believe in this new IP and help people continue to believe in it and purchase it or hope for a sequel. And I know there are complaints about its longevity in terms of like you personally playing it. Like, oh, I played it for a week. I got everything out of it. I'll wait for the new updates. It wasn't a very meaty experience. I guess some people were was the biggest criticism against it. But I think it was such a unique experiment with the arms fighting mechanic. It basically felt like an evolution of the Punch-Out series, essentially. Like, they took Punch-Out into a 3D arena, and what if the punches had crazy mechanics? Like, oh, remember the bosses had weird mechanics, like Raging Bull and Tyson and all of them? It's like, what if we made them cool, zany-looking cartoon characters and stuff? I don't know. I always viewed ARMS that way, and I felt like almost like a spiritual reinvention or evolution of, like, Punch-Out to me. Even though it was, like, not staying in place or anything like that. And ultimately, it sold actually okay.
It broke 1 million.
It broke 1 million sales. It did okay. It's probably going to get a sequel. It most definitely probably will get a sequel.
I mean, I think the parallels between ARMS and Splatoon are pretty obvious. So you can just, you've got the test punch versus the test fire, and Splatoon was to the Wii U. It was that new IP that they were like, on the Wii U, they were trying to pour everything into Splatoon to make it the next big thing, and it caught on. Obviously, Splatoon caught on in a huge way, and that's why they led almost out of the gate with Splatoon 2. And I think they're doing the same thing with ARMS now on the Switch, and they're trying to really push it as one of their new IPs. I don't think it's caught on in quite the same way as Splatoon, but I also don't. It's certainly not a dud either, though. It's caught on in its own way, but it's not the next Splatoon. I think we can safely say at this point, but it hasn't. Yeah,
but it's something I think they won't abandon. I think they might. I would wager, if I had to make my best guess, that they probably think there's still a hook missing from that game, like to catch people on a little bit more. Like it's pretty solid itself to stand on its own 2 feet, but I think it is missing just one more element that would help it pick up more steam, and I think it's earned the right to have a second chance.
Sure,
or it's not a second chance, but a sequel, because it did fine. I won't be surprised if a new Smash Brothers comes out first, and there's at least one ARMS character in Smash Brothers.
Heck yeah!
It's definitely gonna happen.
Definitely.
And a Squid Kid.
And a Squid Kid. It's got to be in the next Smash.
Of course. There's not a new Squid Kid in the next one. But I want to say I liked going with the directs, because we really haven't talked about any of the actual directs.
Yeah.
And I'm not really going to get into any of them, but the style of directs this year, I think they did a really good job with a lot of them.
Sure.
Even the ARMS ones, having Biff, the announcer, doing the personality behind the directs and stuff was kind of cool to have that. The Fire Emblem the early one this year, or was that late last year? The one where they had what's his face, the voice actor, announced basically all the
that was this year. Yeah. That was actually really good.
It was the big it was huge, and fans went nuts because they love that voice actor. I
think Nintendo has finally found their mojo, their rhythm again with directs post, after Iwata's passing.
Yes.
I think they finally have found what works for them in a post Iwata world. And I'm glad to see that, because that 2016, those months following Iwata's passing, it was, Nintendo went silent. They went into kind of hunkering down, healing mode, and they didn't do any directs, and it was kind of sad. It was man, I kind of miss hearing from them every once in a while with their goofy cheesiness, and I think they've now brought a version of that back that works for them without Iwata.
Yes, and as you said, it works well. It's in full effect. While we were talking about ARMS, if you want to add anything else, feel free to. But you both were mentioning Splatoon a little bit, which happens to be the game that came out the very next month in July.
Yeah.
Also heavily supported post-launch.
So Splatoon 2 got, I think, a little bit of a heavier push than ARMS did. They both got decent pushes with directs, but it's clear that Splatoon was a we use a term, critical darling on the Wii U.
Oh, sure.
And it was one of the best, probably the best new IP from Nintendo. Was it? I don't know if it was the only one. I'm sorry. No, they're all the online games, Dilling's Rolling Western came out during that time. It was on Wii U, but came out during that era.
Right.
It was also on 3DS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Splatoon 2, so sequel to this breakout game on Wii U. I think there was some concern, because I felt this. I don't know how widespread this was, but going into it, my concern was, is this going to be Splatoon 1.5? Is this going to actually be a real sequel or not? And the other thing I want you guys to touch upon, because I'm going to be honest, I only touched Splatoon 2 during our group stream, very literally. And everyone was like, Dami clearly does not play this game.
Yep.
He is not, this is not the game for him.
Yeah.
Even though I acknowledge it is a good game. Like, I see the positives in it.
Yeah.
But while you two are talking about Splatoon, I also want to talk about, this also launched alongside the Nintendo Online app, which introduced the voice chat for the first time.
Jeez,
Wow.
yeah.
And all that stuff, and in-game purchases and all that. So, Splatoon 2, it sounded like you both think it did better than ARMS. You think it? Do you? And it's still continuous. It's still being supported to today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it? Like, I don't want to like do any leading questions here. Like, how do you feel about it? And do you think the Nintendo Online app, like, and how do you feel about it initially? And do you think if you still use it, has it gotten any better? Because I have really not touched it since I experimented with it for that one episode of Friend Code where we needed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Splatoon 2, I am not a big Splatoon player myself like you. I basically played it for a while. I enjoy it. I just, at the end of the day, I have too many other games that I need to or would rather play. Whether they're single player games or whatever. My Nintendo multiplayer game that I will stick with forever is Smash. Like, I will play Smash forever. That is my competitive game. I'll always be playing Smash. But Splatoon, I love it. I love that it exists. I love the people. I love watching competitive Splatoon. I think it's super cool. It is a team shooter as only Nintendo could have envisioned it. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that Nintendo's continuing to support it. I love the Squid Kids. I love the culture of Splatoon.
Yeah.
I just don't play it a lot. Just because I'm not good at it. I'm awful at it. I'm always getting just destroyed. And, again, there's just too much to play, and at the end of the day, I've got other things to play. But I think it's a great game, and I think that Nintendo did ultimately prove that it was not a Splatoon 1.5. I have problems with the way the game was launched and rolled out, such that, like, the Salmon Run thing. I love Salmon Run, but let me play it whenever I want.
Yeah.
That drove me nuts.
Bloodworth, who reviewed it for Splatoon 2 for Easy A, also I think
had a hard time getting in.
He's expressed like some frustration with that it's a rare or limited time event.
Right, but I didn't end up feeling like it felt like a Splatoon 1.5. I think there's enough content there, especially because they led off with mostly new stages and then are only now introducing Splatoon 1 stages back into the rotation.
Yeah,
I think because they mostly led with new content, and you have Salmon Run plus a new story mode. It felt like a sequel to me. Like a full...
But it's definitely the kind of sequel that's just, there's more of this.
True, it is not pushing the envelope.
I played through the campaign again, and it's almost like identical to the first. And not in the levels, but in its structure, in its challenges, and it's the boss you face at the end. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like blop, 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 blop.
Okay.
Salmon Run was new, at least. Like, that was a new idea, and it does seem like a lot was repeated. We have two... hosts of the beginning and every time you load up the game, but now they're two different people. You know what I mean? It's just like new things, but not necessarily like a reinvention or a real evolution of it.
I do want to say that to defend why I didn't really get into it, it wasn't necessarily like a time thing, but it sort of was. I was just intimidated by the multiplayer element of it, because I feel like in any multiplayer game, if you don't put a significant time into it, you're just gonna get frustrated. Like, you have to start somewhere, and usually you start at the bottom. So it's a painful lesson in getting better and better in that game. But I will say that what I do lament is they both, Splatoon 1 and 2, have a single player campaign, and I really do want to jump into those at some point.
They're fun. They're actually good.
That is something that is something for me, but it's not. I don't think that's worth full price for me.
Yeah,
so I've always been like waiting for either like a Splatoon 1-2 bundle, which I hope they were gonna do.
No,
but
I doubt it.
Never. Who knows? Or at the very least, I'm gonna wait for maybe Splatoon 2 to go down, be like a select or whatever lineup they eventually do for Switch.
One thing before we move on real quick that I want to give it credit for, though, is if you're not very good at shooting, if you're not really good at the games, the multiplayer is still fun for you because you can contribute to the team simply by splattering. And that's something
true.
I actually like about its design a lot. It's not necessarily just about getting kills.
Exactly. That's how I end up competing at all in Splatoon, because I can't get kills for the life of me most of the time. But I'll stick with a gun that's good at inking turf, and I can contribute in that way. And that is really one of the brilliant things about it, is that even if you aren't a good traditional first-person shooter player or third-person any shooter player, you can still contribute to your team's success. At least in certain game modes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's good of them to do that.
Yeah.
Want to give credit to Splatoon 2 for the trying to preserve a small snippet of what was so good about Miiverse. The drawing messaging stuff in there. Like, everyone's like, oh, there's no Miiverse on Switch. There's actually no online community really yet for it.
Yeah.
Just the app, which is why I kind of brought it up. But Splatoon 2 knew at least the developers knew, like, hey, that element of Miiverse was pretty popular in Splatoon. We need to work it in here. So I want to give like shout outs for them at least incorporating that, despite there being no real infrastructure anymore for that, but working in a way as an element of the game that, you know, fans like and appreciated.
I am crossing everything I have that for Smash 5, even though obviously the Miiverse stage isn't going to come back, but I want them to bring back a stage that serves the same purpose, that you can post winners and messages and pictures about the winner of the match. I just want a stage based on that, because so many of my best, funniest moments with friends in Smash 4 have been on the Miiverse stage, where you just, I mean, so many, that's so much I could say about Miiverse being the Wild West of social media, but just like it's social media as only Nintendo could have done it. But I just love how they just gave up on moderation somewhere along the way. So when you go to play the Miiverse stage in Smash now, it's all sorts of just hilariously inappropriate things. But there was something about that stage that was just really, I love that communal element of people submitting, and it's just led to so many funny moments that otherwise wouldn't have happened in a regular Smash stage.
Yeah. August. I know we're moving on. Mm-hmm. Every month here, new game. The end of August is when Mario and Rabbids finally did come out. So I ended up reviewing this game for Easy Allies because I'm not the biggest strategy fan. In fact, I don't play any strategy games.
Faster Than Light?
What?
Faster Than Light?
Okay. FTL's one exception. And then more strategy RPGs are more my thing, like Valkyria Chronicles or Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem. Mm-hmm. Like I like those. So XCOM actually wasn't my cup of tea. I tried playing the original XCOM when it came out back at Game Trailers. We had extra copies. I brought one home, tried playing it for a bit, played it for a few hours. I was like, I'll stick to Fire Emblem. Like, this really isn't for me. But Mario and Rabbids, it really does. It does not have any qualms with borrowing from some of the best strategy games out there, including XCOM, which is a lot of people describe the game as. It has XCOM-like mechanics with a Mario twist on it. That was like the catchy line that everyone was throwing out there. But I do think that twist part helped a lot. It wasn't the fact people were like, it's because it had Mario characters in it. Yeah, that helps. That does help some people get into a game, but at the same time, we found out that Miyamoto said to the development team, you just can't make it a platformer, whatever you're doing with this game. But there still are jumping mechanics in this game by the bounce mechanic, by bouncing off. The sliding, the running through, the sliding, and the bouncing, and the getting on the higher levels mechanic of Mario and Rabbids is great.
Yeah.
I love that. I was like, yes. I would fail mission, or not fail, I would even complete a battle and be like, nope, I'm reset, go back. I didn't get the best ranking.
Yeah,
but also, I saw I could have done this a different way.
Yeah.
And I think the diversity, even though there's 4 Mario characters and 4 Mario Rabbids with Mario like personas, I think there's just enough diversity between the play styles of the characters, what they specialize in, that because you can only take 3 out at a time, and you can never have 3. This is my only irksome thing. I don't know if this bugged any of you. You couldn't have all 3 Mario characters or all 3 Rabbid characters anytime. You had to have a mix.
And I think for the whole campaign, Mario has to be one of them.
Does he?
I forget if that's true.
I tried to get him out. And
I'll believe that, because I didn't actually try that, because I actually made Mario pretty powerful.
He is. He's a great party member, for sure, yeah.
But let's talk, the visuals of that game, I loved how good that game looked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I loved how, there were some parts where I got angry at the camera when I didn't have enough camera control to see more of the environments. I just want to see this. I was worried at first also how much would be to do in between the fights. And as you get further in the game, there's quite a bit to do. Going off to try and find hidden stuff, hidden chest. I forget what chest. There's the hidden stuff you can find. There are puzzles to either unlock the path forward or unlock secret areas.
I forgot how much fun those puzzles are.
There were you could access a cannon that would shoot you to a different area. Then there were just secret areas you can come back to each world to find. It had their own stuff, and it was just right. It felt good, and I felt it got more. It did get more challenging as I went along, but I never thought it was ridiculous. Right. I saw some people complain that it was a little too hard for a Mario type game. Like, it should have been a little easier to ease people into strategy games. No, I was like, I did not find any of that whatsoever. I felt battles encouraged you to maybe try out some different stuff if you were used to doing something a certain way. Even the skill tree stuff was there's no consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can instantly reset your points with no penalty and redo it. And the game's like, try that. Maybe you spec into like all your power and jumps, but this battle, like, you're not gonna be able to do that a lot. So maybe you should respec it into like sliding or running further, so you can actually get more distance. So you can get. I just liked, and there'd be all those moments, and every strategy game does this. And I loved it in this game too, where I would try and do something, think I had the perfect solution, and that enemy would like go to that pipe, like, oh shoot, I didn't know it was there, and they run around, get behind you, and they like get you. You're like, oh, it's so frustrating, but so good.
I'm sad to say that I did not get a chance to play much of Mario and Rabbids. It's one of the games that I just, unlike the other GameXplain guys, that's their full-time job. It's not mine, so I have to, really carve more time out for games like that. So
sure.
It was just one of the games that fell through the cracks because I didn't have enough time to play it. But everything I've seen of it, I'm really impressed with the visuals. I've definitely done, watched some in-depth reviews and features on it, and I love the XCOM vibe. I love what they did with it, and I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, I think it's just surprising that an idea that seems so awful on paper ended up not being just fine, but like it really excelled.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's no way this is the last Ubisoft developed Nintendo game.
Oh, no way.
Not even the last Ubisoft development game. There could be a sequel to this game.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right,
probably.
Because I think this is now the best-selling. This is the best-selling technical third-party Switch game, I believe.
Wow.
Because it's not first party.
Yeah.
I think it did surpass Bomberman, which was initially like.
Really, Bomberman was up there too.
Because remember,
Wow,
it's like
surprise.
500,000 or something by some point. I thought because Rabbids was still charting as of like last month. I think it's dropped as we'll get to the numbers at the end of this for MPD. It did drop off eventually, but they all said it sold pretty well. It sold like very good. So
Nice.
I said very well and very good. So just broke the rule there. Basically in a nutshell, there's got to be a sequel. This has to be a sequel. There's so many different things they can do with the sequel. There's so much potential for growth with this type of game.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, Ash, the soundtrack for this game,
Yes.
really good. For those of you wondering, is definitely in consideration for our GOTY. It was on that list.
Huh?
It was on the
Yeah.
list, but we're sent out.
I don't think we're making that public yet. That kind of thing.
Okay, but I can say that. No, whatever.
You can
we
say-
can,
yeah.
we can say the one game.
Yeah.
We can say one game that's on the list. There's your little inside information for this episode. But come on, it's good enough. Like, it was definitely going to be considered. Like, it's not a shocker there.
Yeah.
There was one other game that came out in August that I have to call out. Super
Okay.
important game. One of my favorites of the year. And again, a lot of what you just said about Mario and Rabbids, you could say about this. I can't wait to see what they do with the sequel. And it had one of the best soundtracks of the year, and that is Sonic Mania.
Oh yeah.
One of my
geez, yeah.
favorite games of the year.
Oh, yes.
Great pick.
Incredible. And actually, I'll go out right out and say it. T. Lopes' soundtrack for Sonic Mania is my soundtrack of the year.
It's a good pick.
Yeah.
That's a real legit
in a
good
soundtrack,
pick, yeah.
or in a year full of incredible soundtracks, like, again, Nier Automata, Mario Odyssey, Horizon, Sonic Mania. That soundtrack just is on a different level.
Cool.
I love that game.
I completely forgot about it because it was a multi-platform.
Yeah, it's not specifically Nintendo.
And
Yeah.
I think it was the only version that didn't run at 60 frames, I think.
Oh, no, it did. It just had a few glitches.
Oh,
there was like
okay,
a home
okay.
menu glitch, but it totally ran fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was really good. Really
Yeah.
good. On a Switch. Another Sega definitely supporting
Yes.
Switch.
Do we think this is another example where that's the best-selling platform?
Sonic Mania?
Yeah.
I have a feeling.
Sonic
I don't
Mania sales
know,
are already
though.
made public. I forget.
But I don't remember. I feel like it would be.
Sure.
Well, here's the bad news. Forces came out last month, right? It should have been in November NPD,
It
right?
did, yeah.
It's not anywhere in the NPD.
Oh, yeah,
Even
yeah,
on
yeah.
Switch,
No,
Forces
no.
didn't
It's a
chart.
pretty meh game,
so I
so I
don't
can see why.
know. Yeah, but I mean, Sega still put Forces on Switch.
I'm gonna try to find a Mania breakdown.
Go
Okay.
ahead. And then also, like, looking ahead to the future real quick, Valkyria 4.
Yeah.
Also coming to Switch.
Also coming to Switch.
I think
Yeah.
it's going to be slightly delayed. At least in Japan, it's not coming out day and date with
Right.
the other versions. But we don't know about the Western release yet. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. But yeah, definitely Sonic Mania was a big deal. Moving into September, Samus Returns. We did talk about this earlier. I mean, again, it's a remake of Metroid 2, Return of Samus for the Game Boy. I think here is where I think there was some tension and anxiety about this game that we really hit upon about E3. It was being developed by Mercury Steam, who, if everyone was pointing out, made a really bad 3DS Castlevania game that wasn't well received. And this was another same style visually of 3DS Metroid game. I was like, wait, what? you're trusting them to do this when and Castlevania and Metroid get compared a lot. They're very analogous to each other, so there was some concern there. And then there was the elephant in the room, as usual. There was another version of Metroid 2, a fan project, another Metroid 2 remake, which got a cease and desist earlier. And everyone was like, oh, it just got too big. Everyone, Nintendo finally found out about it. They had to do something about it because you have to protect their IP, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, wait, there is an actual Nintendo-made Metroid 2 remake coming out. So obviously, let the comparisons begin. So you had Mercury Steam, which fans didn't have faith in, or some people didn't have faith in, and the fact that another version, which a sprite-based version of a Metroid 2 remake was out there that was getting quite a bit of praise from the people who ended up playing it. Even some of the bigger blogs covered it and said it was pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. So everyone's like, this game there's a lot, it has to work against. But anyway, it comes out, it's actually pretty good. It's different. Yeah. It's for anyone who did play another Metroid 2 remake, they're different. It is different, and it's very different from the original Metroid. You have 3 versions now. Yep. One that you really shouldn't be playing is not official, so the Game Boy version, that's as much acknowledgement I'll give it. I love that fan game, but I'm gonna end it there. You now have 2 official versions that are very different from each other and offer very unique takes on that game. And I think it actually did sell pretty well. It did chart it did chart and sold well, and 3DS sales that month were pretty good as well. So later in the year, once again, we're seeing a sign that 3DS is still going strong. Nintendo is right to keep supporting the 3DS, so just backing that up. I've seen some of the complaints about the game. It reviewed pretty well, but wasn't really in the 9 out of 10 range in the end. It was more in the 8 out of 10 range is where it settled at, I believe. I saw some concerns over the visual style of it. I saw some complaints there. I saw some complaints about the 360 aiming with the analog.
What, that rules? Who complains about that?
I actually like that as well.
Yeah.
It took me 5 seconds to get used to it. I was like, oh, it's gonna be like this.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So I know some people complained it might have been a little too difficult. Some of the bosses, I was like, well, that's Metroid. First time a boss should be challenging.
They're definitely ammo eater bosses, though.
They are.
But,
they just
kind of been a staple of Metroid.
It's a Super Metroid thing, right?
Yeah. It's been a staple of that. There's the narrative stuff. I'm personally not too terribly invested in the lore of Metroid. I know of it. I acknowledge it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But there was a part of the ending that was apparently the midichlorians moment for the Metroid series about the creation of the Metroids, how they came to be and stuff.
Oh, I'm actually curious. I have gotten to the end of the game. I'm not worried about spoilers,
okay.
But it's okay. But I mean, I have actually gotten to the end of the game, and that sounds,
basically in a nutshell, okay. I believe. And again, I'm always saying this. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Chozo made the bioengineered Metroids to counter the parasite stuff.
The X-Parasite.
The X-Parasite.
Yeah.
They were basically perfectly engineered to destroy it and counter it. But then, they basically also started wiping out everything on the planet as well. Yeah.
But it's weird how that's told. It's not told through the game. It's told through those slides you unlock for 100% of the game.
Right.
And it's only kind of implied, too, in a weird way.
Yeah.
You kind of have to assemble that yourself.
I definitely want to get your thoughts on this as well. The last thing I just want to say on my end is this game also got criticized for the amiibo support. You had to only certain stuff was unlocked to amiibos. Plus, on top of that, you had to beat the game, including the hardest difficulty, fusion mode. There is a hard mode you can unlock once you beat the game, but fusion mode, which is the hardest difficulty, is locked behind an amiibo.
And you get the cool fusion suit, right?
I think you do. I think you get the fusion suit. Yeah,
I believe you do. I tried it out it's on the stream. I don't actually in the stream. I just played it anyway. So I feel is mostly good, but it had some hang-ups and then the amiibo stuff again. But how do you guys feel about it?
I liked Samus Returns. Of course, like I said, I haven't finished it. I don't know. It's a weird game where I like it, but I think it is definitely hamstrung by the fact that it is a remake of what I consider to be the worst Metroid game. It's just it's still Metroid 2, and it's. I think the boss fights get a little samey after a while. You're fighting the same 3 or 4 versions of Metroid throughout the game.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten done playing Axiom Verge. I was reviewing the Switch version of Axiom Verge, which has awesome boss fights, and it's just an awesome game in general. So unfortunately, I was kind of left to kind of compare Axiom Verge to Samus Returns, and not only that, I got to say this might be unpopular, but I don't think Metroid Samus Returns is the best Metroid-like game that came out in September. I also played SteamWorld Dig 2 that month.
Oh yeah,
and
I put SteamWorld Dig 2
And that game, I gotta
SteamWorld
say,
Dig 2.
that game completely overshadowed Samus Returns for me. Like it completely overshadowed it, which is why I haven't gone back and finished it, because other games came out, and I mean, Samus Returns is great. I particularly love the 360-degree aiming mode. I love the way Samus moves in that game. I think her character animation is fantastic. In
really
that
good
game.
stuff. Yeah,
and again, I gotta shout out the stereoscopic 3D.
Yes.
Some of the best on the system, bar none.
I
Especially,
had to play that game in 3D.
Yeah.
It was annoying to play that game in 2D for some reason. Because of the layers and stuff. It just worked much better in 3D.
Yeah.
For me.
And especially if you're playing like in a dark room and all you see is the screen, it's even cooler. And it's so good. But then, then you have the other things, like it just felt like the world, the different areas weren't as memorable. Instead of Criteria and Meridia, you have Area 2 and Area 4. And you had the same boss fights throughout the game, mostly. And it's just so... not my favorite Metroid game, but an experience I still enjoyed, but just completely overshadowed by both SteamWorld Dig 2 and Axiom Verge for me, to be honest.
All right. Yeah, and I've said this many times. I don't know if I've said this many times before, but this is how I feel. Even though it's unofficial, I do think the fan remake was very, very good and better than this. But,
I didn't get to play a lot of it, but I want to go back and,
again, still showed 3DS has some chops left. But September also saw the release of something pretty big, something huge. End of the month, on September 29th.
Oh.
After being announced earlier in the year, struck the fear in a lot of fans' hearts that it'd be a repeat of history. The Super Nintendo Classic launched.
Oh, I could not think of this.
I was like, want to see how long Kyle would take?
It took me the whole time, man.
21 Super Nintendo games for, I believe, $79.99 was the price point, $80. Big deal because it was the first time the official release of Star Fox 2, outside of the dumped and fan-completed ROMs. So here's this thing. NES Classic came out last year, in 2016. And Nintendo, it was pretty clear at this point, Nintendo underestimated how well it was going to sell.
Yes.
And
marketplace disconnect.
Pretty much once it was sold out, you could not find it again. You had to go to secondhand markets for it, and it was done. This time around, there was a little bit of a debacle with the pre-order. There was like the false start initially, some canceled pre-orders. Like that kind of worried some people. But in the end, I feel like if you were seeking out a pre-order and putting some effort into it, you probably got one. People were actually able to walk into stores that morning and line up and get it without too much. Pretty good success rate, basically, and very few people saying I lined up, I didn't get one. And I want to say I see more updates from Wario 64 going out. That SNES Classic is back in stock. Like almost every month, I see at least one or two. I never saw anything like that with NES Classic. So I just want to say, even though it still sells out, it's still somewhat hard to get. Nintendo did, to an extent, live up to its promise that they're continually releasing it, kind of like the Switch. Eventually, they got more supply for it. And I think overall it was an easier and better experience with the pre-order. I do still want to call out Amazon and Walmart for their failures. Because, Kyle, you were affected by Amazon as well, right?
Just in that I didn't get it launch day.
Yeah, there was some trouble with that in Walmart. Like
Walmart straight up canceled my pre-order.
Yeah. Walmart had trouble, but like weren't you a little bit worried that you might not get it because they weren't communicating at first. They were like silent unless you went to a customer service agent.
Well, it was the freakiest thing with Amazon. I pre-ordered an item with no image or really accurate description.
Yeah,
and that ended up being my Super Nintendo Classic.
Yeah. I gotta say, I was able to pre-order an SNES Classic at Best Buy that night, and I was able to walk in and get mine no problem.
Nice.
And I guarantee you, go back and listen. Andre and Derek and I all talked all sorts of smack about, like, there's no way Nintendo, they say that. It's PR nonsense, but they're just going to totally, just not launch it well again. And no, they proved us all wrong. They actually have kept it in stock mostly. Not perfectly, as you said, but I haven't heard as many people having trouble finding it, like I did the NES Classic, and that does give me faith that their promised NES Classic reissue or their reshipment
next year.
is actually going to happen and deliver on what they say it will.
And of course, there's all the rumors about what the next one will be, whether it's Game Boy or N64.
I think it's Game Boy.
Control pad. I have faith in
Game
those
Boy
as
was
well.
trademarked, right?
Was it? No, I think N64 actually.
It was N64
okay.
controller. They re-upped the patent for it because it indicated that they had intent to make it in soon.
Yes.
Within a certain time window.
I just have a feeling it's going to be Game Boy. I don't know why. I can't point to any specific.
So we had a whole episode about this, but in a nutshell, N64 seems like it would be way more expensive to cost to consumers and harder to get the lineup that people really want on that system. Whereas Game Boy seems like it'd be cheaper to do. They probably can more easily get a bunch of the classics on there.
Are you imagining it's a screen though? Because then it's going to be more to manufacture.
Oh no, it's gonna probably be a portable device, yes, and it's gonna be a screen that's like a common screen, not a special. It's not gonna replicate the old Game Boy or anything. It's not gonna be a monochrome screen. It's just gonna have a some kind of like filter,
which
or something.
I bet is actually cheaper
because they're probably gonna have. I bet they're gonna have Game Boy Advance games. They're gonna have the whole lineup, I think, on there, or sorry, Game Boy Color games as well. So they're gonna need something to do color properly as well, and like the original Game Boy screen can't do that.
I'll buy it in a second.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. And speaking of lineups, I love the SNES Classic, and I love the SNES Classic's lineup mostly, but there is a gargantuan Chrono Trigger shaped hole in that lineup, and that is my favorite game of all time. So I just had to put it out there.
One of the greats.
I love it, but where's Chrono Trigger? Oh my god!
Don't worry, I got a special European version with it on it.
Oh, nice, very nice.
It's true, he does. He does have that.
Yeah.
So okay, that was a big deal. That was a big thing that happened that month. And again, I would chalk it up as mostly another win for Nintendo, in that they did something right to win back some.
Oh yeah.
Win back people
totally.
after the NES debacle. I think people we all seem way more optimistic about what they do next than we felt after the NES Classic going into SNES Classic.
Good point. Yeah.
October had a lot of stuff. October was a huge month. I want to start with something. I didn't play this at all, but you feel free to talk about like the game itself, but I'm bringing it up for a different reason.
Okay.
On October 6th, Nintendo officially released Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions.
Oh.
I know about the sprite debate over like or when it was first announced, people like veterans got really upset about the new look for it. Newer players seem to be like, what are you talking about? But like veterans like, look how different it looks.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge and recognize there was some concern going into it. I'm bringing it up because this game sparked a sequence of events that should not really be understated. It got leaked, as in not information. The actual game itself got leaked online, available to pirate, basically for piracy, several weeks ahead of this October 6th release, and it drew the ire of Nintendo. And when they found out it was a North American outlet or YouTuber, whoever did it, it was a North American entity that did it. The hammer came down on North American outlets very swiftly, very definitively. I think almost no one got a North American copy of Fire Emblem Warriors, which also came out in October. Those who did do a review used their European counterparts to get the code from Nintendo of Europe to get around that, which I think I heard was actually why Nintendo of America then basically relayed that information to Europe and said, you need to only send out physical copies of Mario Odyssey to European outlets, because North America also got punished with Odyssey as well.
Yeah.
So like nuclear option on Fire Emblem in North America. Odyssey, a lot of outlets some outlets didn't get it, including us, ahead of release, or the amount of copies that were promised, like some of the bigger sites that they were getting multiple, were then scaled back as a result of this.
Ash, how did GameXplain? How many copies did you get?
We got, let's see, I know we got Fire Emblem Warriors. We had to go through a European connection for sure.
Wow.
I think we got one on launch day. But to review it, for Derek to do the review, we had to get a European one, which we really appreciated. But then for Mario, we got one, but we had to sweat it out. Like, we didn't get one until about, I think, 5 days out from launch. And of course, Andre was just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And, props to him, because, you guys both know how many moons there are in that game. And, and he banged out a review in like 4 or 5 days, but we were sweating it out. We were like, are we going to get anything? This is so. And fortunately, we did, but it was a pretty, we were pretty scared there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems I want to say like it seems like it's over because to be transparent, we got Xenoblade Chronicles too early. Like, nothing wrong with that. Something came up with Pokemon, but Pokemon's all dealt with. For those who don't know, Pokemon Company and Game Freak, but Pokemon Company specifically, handles pretty much everything with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo America and even in NCL will get overruled sometimes by Pokemon Company.
Yeah.
So if they don't want, like, they've always been very stubborn and hard, pretty like, what's the term? Almost draconian in their like embargo restrictions. Even at game trailers, we would get like stuff from them early, and they'd have the most ridiculous restrictions
about how much you can stream.
Like basically,
They do.
if anything had not been shown off officially in North America, even if it's basic information, would always be off limits until their embargo date. Even if it's out in Japan, even if Japanese sites were reporting on it and it was officially out of there, no, you cannot talk about it because North America doesn't know about it yet. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, it seems like the this temporary like kind of like punishment for one person's folly ended. But it was a thing. It did affect some people and stuff like that. So all because of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Ben Bowser's Minions.
Yeah.
I want to know, did either of you play that game? And
I'm never going to play that game.
Never going to play that game.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to, but I just didn't get a chance. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a filler 3DS game.
A filler.
That's filler.
That's a game I think should have been on Switch.
Yeah.
Definitely should, because it's online only, right? No, we got a physical copy eventually.
I think we did, yeah.
Did they? They released a physical version of that game? Wowie. Okay.
But like the thing too is that like they brought back something I love from Dream Team, which was the overall art style. I actually like Dream Team's visual style.
Okay.
But they brought back, or they didn't bring back one of the best parts of it, which was again the stereoscopic 3D. I thought Dream Team had some of the best in the system, and then I was looking for that to be the case in Superstar Saga, and I played it at E3, and I was told by one of the reps there, like, oh, no 3D. And I'm like, God, it's such a good looking game. Dream Team looked great.
I get when they don't do 3D. I get why they don't, but in that case, that makes no sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and they didn't do it for Paper Jam either. Yeah. And that's another game that would have looked really good in 3D. So that was one of the reasons I was like, well, it doesn't really feel like I need to play this, even though I love Mario and Luigi, obviously. But it's just, if it was, you said filler.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem Warriors is a game I didn't touch, which is surprising because I love Fire Emblem. The reason it didn't interest me from very early on is the lineup. They were heavily focusing on the newer games.
Yes.
And the new roster. And even some of the characters they held behind the paid DLC, like Tharja being paid DLC, was clearly like a fan service pitch. It's like, you want this character, you're paying for her, and we know why you're paying for most of you. It's like, oh my gosh.
Hey, that's not fair. Tharja's not like that.
Tharja is an amazing character.
Yes.
Like, powerful and stuff.
Yes.
But you clearly, be honest, someone at Nintendo was thinking that. It's like, really? Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that sucks. That's not how they should do things. And they also promised, I want to say in the positive end of things, they kept teasing that, or promising that it was going to like be a slight evolution or add more elements to the Muso formula, basically. It wasn't.
And I think it kind of did.
And it kind of, Ben Moore reviewed it for us.
Yeah.
And he did say he did some of that, but like, it still has a lot of the problems that past Muso games have had if you're not really into them. But like, I think it was ultimately the roster. It's just for me. The reason I didn't get into it is just the roster. I'm like, where's Ike? Where's Marth? Where's Roy? Where are these older characters that
Marth is in the game. There's a whole Shadow Dragon contingent in the game. Marth.
My bad. Ike though. Yeah. Ike specifically. I was like, okay, these characters that were in Smash Brothers, like they keep showing off and stuff. Like, oh, they've been like, these are the flagship faces of the Fire Emblem.
You got to have Roy.
And they're like, they made a statement. One of the developers said, like, "What we're thinking about bringing those fan favorites for the next one." I'm like, you need them all now. This game felt like it had no hype going into it. Like it felt like it had no marketing to me. It felt like it was so under the radar, despite all these other Fire Emblem games we talked about, Echoes and Heroes. And Nintendo doing a Fire Emblem Direct, and there's a Fire Emblem Switch game even coming out next year that they've been kind of like touting. This one felt like it might have been the lowest on their totem pole. And it just was crammed in between another game we're going to talk about right after this. That was a huge game for October.
Oh, yeah.
It almost felt like it was like, we don't want to put this, just release it and hope for the best.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Warriors is a really weird existence just in general because, again, like after Hyrule Warriors was great and people loved it, amazing roster, fan favorite characters across the board, even just as DLC too. But then, and you think Fire Emblem Warriors is a surefire knockout hit, and then the roster happens, and it's like, wait a minute. I mean, I get that they want to focus on Fates and Awakening, but how do you not have some of those really important legacy characters? And then, the game comes out. Again, I don't think the release date was very well chosen. I think it was kind of sandwiched in a bunch of other stuff. But then you get that, plus, remember, there was a 3DS version, and they just quietly crept that out the door.
Yep.
And I don't think that we even saw any official media. There might have been 2 screenshots of the 3DS version released by Nintendo before they just quietly snuck it out the door. Yeah. And just everything about Fire Emblem Warriors confused me. And I like it. It's cool. Again, I'm a casual Fire Emblem fan, but it's so clear to see the wasted potential there with the roster. And it's like, what happened? But at the same time, I do have to give it credit for including a very un-Nintendo option that I thought was really cool to have, which was the choice between a fidelity 1080p mode or a performance-based 720p mode. And that's a very un-Nintendo thing.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really cool option. I'm glad they included that.
I wonder if that was like a push from Omega Force.
I would think so.
To get that, because that sounds like something they would push for. But just real quick, the release date. I think it could have been pushed. It could have been a 2018 title.
Yeah.
Like it probably.
No. We got a 2018 title, baby.
I mean, we still know
it's coming.
We still know when it's coming out. Just something.
They said 2018.
It could come out in the fall.
It probably will.
Warriors
Fire
could have been
Emblem?
in spring.
Or December. December after Xenoblade. Position it 2 weeks after Xenoblade. Kind of a nice.
It would have done better
than year. Yeah.
And the reason we were all like saying that we were concerned about the release date was because at the end of October. A little game called Super Mario Odyssey came out on the Switch on October 27th. You might have heard of that game.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah, I might have heard of it. Mm-hmm. I feel like we had a big episode on it. I feel like I've said my piece on how great Mario Odyssey is. It has sold very well. In fact, it was the number 6 best-selling game of November overall for physical sales, no online included. Highest Switch game or Switch exclusive game on the list. So... Mario Odyssey.
I mean, Mario Odyssey is a phenomenal game. I 100%ed it. I make it a point to try 100%.
999?
I did.
Nice.
And I actually regret it a bit because I actually agree with Andre here in his review, for those of you who've seen it. Super Mario Odyssey, the way it's structured, it's a fantastic game, especially that initial journey through the game, the main story, and the post-game up to a point. And then I think after about 500 moons... you get really diminishing returns, and the kind of diminishing returns I was not expecting from a Mario game. I spent 90 hours with it, 80 hours. I loved it. I got 999 moons, but I didn't enjoy the last 25% of that journey the way I usually really enjoy the post games in Mario Odyssey. So it's kind of made me really think about. I adore that game, incredible game, but I don't know if I want to see them go back to the way they did the post game for it. I really loved. Like the Comet challenges in Galaxy, they really test your skills.
Yeah.
I feel like Odyssey never really ramped up into the kind of post-game challenge that I was hoping for 3D Mario.
It's like been a staple of a lot of them.
Yeah, like
time.
even the final stage, it was surprisingly limp in terms of how easy it was compared to like Champions Road in 3D World. Yeah. Oh my, with Toad especially. So I mean, again, I love Odyssey, but I don't know if I want to see them do the post-game the way they did it again.
Yeah, the way I always explain it is that. I don't think that the game's intent is for anyone to get 999.
Yeah.
I think there's that many moons to give every player who's playing through it plenty of options to find their way. And so for people like us who do care to 100% a game, it is less appealing in a way, which is funny.
Yeah.
But like for somebody who's just interested in playing for a day or playing for a couple of hours and just picking up whatever moons they find, I think that's such a unique thing about this Mario game in particular. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only felt the need to get to 500. That was like
to get
my
the
drive
invisible
in that
hat.
game.
Yeah.
That wasn't. Oh, I wanted to play that last level.
Well, the darker
right.
side.
Yeah. Invisible cap was cool, but like I just looked at it for a second. I'm like, all right, nice. What's left?
Yeah.
And I have to get 499. No.
Yeah, I think I'm used to 3D Mario games culminating in something big and epic and super challenging, and just Odyssey. The culmination is at the end of the main story, and then the post-game stuff, you get some really cool surprises, but then it kind of slowly descends, and then it just never. I was thinking, okay, dark side, it's going to get really hard. Then it's just kind of they just almost hand you a lot of the moons toward the end of the game too, and I was like, okay, I get what they're going for here. Really cool Mario game. I love Odyssey, but I hope they maybe go with something in a different direction next time.
All right,
but I still loved the game, obviously.
Yeah. It's a good game.
Yeah,
it's a good game.
Good game. Again, 2 episodes ago, we did like a full discussion of Mario Odyssey. If you want to get everyone else's in-depth thoughts, so
right.
November, November was a pretty busy month, but for third parties. Big third party month. Saw a release of Doom.
Oh, yeah.
Switch.
Yep.
Rhyme's port.
Is that a big one?
It was a big indie game, I would say, because I think I will say this. I was told Rhyme was the Switch version of Rhyme was the one that people are looking the most forward to.
Okay.
I think it actually had the most pre-orders or something. I heard something about that.
Sure.
That was like, so it had a little bit riding on it. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be such a good port.
All right.
The rest of these, different story though. Doom port.
Yep.
For how big of a technical achievement Doom is, from the masters at id Software, like at optimizing games, especially for PC, pretty impressive to see them get that game running on Switch. Yeah, it has some corner cutting to get that to it, some downgrades. I had someone point out to me, like, any kind of review or discussion of Switch versions of games that are basically big 3D AAA games. You guys need to stop saying it's the worst looking version or it's a downgrade. Like, it should be just assumed at this point. Like, it's just beating a dead horse. We get it. We want to know how close it gets to the other versions.
Yep.
And if, is it serviceable? Is it admirable? Does it have any extra modes or anything like that? And I would say, like, Doom was pretty between serviceable to admirable from what I saw of it up and running. I didn't touch LA Noire, but apparently it is because it was like a last gen game. It was a 360 PS3 era game, and so a little less difficult to port it to Switch.
Sure.
Apparently it looks pretty good. It has use of the touchscreen. Apparently they tweaked it a bit to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And apparently it's better for it. So everything I saw about it.
And I like that they do the good cop, bad cop now instead of doubt and truth, doubt, and lie or whatever. Like,
because that was a little,
it was always confusing.
That wasn't very straightforward.
Yes.
So they cleaned that up. Revelations 1 and 2 on Switch. The combination of that. I played a lot of Skyrim on Switch.
Yes.
Had a lot of fun with that. If you have never played it like me, obviously, that's probably why, as a lot of people pointed out in a very forceful way recently. But yeah, a lot of these third-party ports.
Wasn't Rocket League too?
Rocket League as well.
Yeah, Rocket League as well.
I would say, while it looks good offline, online modes sometimes
it's a little rough
sketchy.
looking.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it plays perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, it plays fine. Just looks
it looks
visually,
a
it's like,
that's interesting. Okay.
Especially you're playing in. It's
you can tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really small on the handheld screen too. Like points, like because sometimes you get pretty zoomed out.
Oh,
so it's
sure.
a little. I had to play. I preferred to play it docked, and even docked, like the models of the cars are like.
At the same time, though, I appreciate that they prioritize 60 frames per second in Rocket League. That was always the right decision.
And cross-platform play, you can play it with. So that is that. I think that kind of, especially if you take it on the go, I think that, and you have a Wi-Fi connection somewhere, that does sort of make up for that.
Yeah, it's cool.
So each company in its own way are going out. I know in the prior month there was FIFA 18. Like EA kept saying like this is our best effort for this. We finally started to see all these third-party ports starting to come out and being able to judge how they are. And these are the first. This is like the first wave. These are like, I would almost call some of these a little bit of not rush jobs, but like the testing the waters. I think the ones we're gonna get later are gonna have more time to cook. They're gonna know better what they can do with the Switch hardware. They're gonna understand the limitations a little bit better.
Like when Wolfenstein 2 comes out.
Yeah, like
right.
So let's I know I'm jumping a little ahead, but at November MPD, Switch's top 10 selling games, not including eShop sales, digital sales. Skyrim was the highest. Was the highest rated one of the third party ones, because Odyssey was obviously number one, but. It was like Odyssey was 1, Mario Kart 8 was 2,
wow.
Breath of the Wild was 3, which we've seen those.
And I'm sorry, this just for November?
Just for November on Switch.
Okay.
On Switch only, not compared to anyone else. Number 4, the fourth best selling Switch game of November, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Then Splatoon 2, Mario and Rabbids, Kingdom Battle, there's Sonic Forces, and Doom. So... yeah, Sega, like Sonic Forces, and even Doom.
Yeah,
I was more worried about Doom because Doom's so cheap on other platforms.
Yeah,
and that was the harder sell, I think.
And Nintendo only reports physical to NPDs, so yeah, it's pretty crazy actually.
I believe a source said that the physical sales of Skyrim were just over 100,000, but factor in the digital sales, it actually came closer to 200 or just over 200,000 for a 6-year-old port that's had so many different releases.
No, that's crazy alone
That
because
is.
you don't have a lot of space on the Switch.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And when I say 6-year-old, I mean the game originally came out. People keep calling me out for this.
Forcefully calling stuff. Leave them alone.
Like you guys got to realize, like, I get it. I'll say the statement so I can clarify. The Switch version of Skyrim is based on the remastered version. I get that. Like, I've never claimed that. I'm just not saying the original game came out 6 years ago. The game is 6 years old technically. Come on, like people are just getting really hooked up on specifics here. But anyway, Bethesda's seeing payoffs right now. Which yes, Wolfenstein 2, which they are waiting till next year to release. I think they will take what they've learned so far from these games and apply it to that. But also everyone else is going to start seeing what they can do and start applying it and making better ports for Switch. I see it only getting better from here, basically.
Yeah.
Despite, some people might read the November stuff for the third parties as disappointing because, some of them didn't even chart at all anywhere, like L.A. Noire, like Grime. I don't know. Revelations came out at the very end, so it's really hard for that to chart when it's had 1 or 2 days only of also another older game being ported.
Yeah.
I keep telling people don't jump to that conclusion just yet. Wait and see, because what we're getting
year one is not even over yet.
Yeah,
right.
It's not even the end of the first year,
Yeah.
and these are a pretty big deal so far. This is getting much better support, much better third-party support, I think, than Nintendo's gotten in a long time. And my personal interpretation of this is it can only get better because I hope these third parties are seeing that, if we just do this, or now we know how to develop more efficiently on the Switch hardware, we can achieve this on a port of this game next year or whatever. So I see 2018 being the real year. That's the year you need to start looking at stuff and taking it a little bit more to heart. If something doesn't do well, it's okay, maybe those naysayers, right? But I foresee things being better for Switch with third parties. Yeah,
I can guarantee you that's going to happen only because that's what we see. I mean, that's just game development in general. Every console since the beginning, whatever, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all the way up to PS3, Xbox, whatever, Wii. Games developed and released toward the end of a console's life cycle are always technically more sound and they push the limits of what the hardware can do. I guarantee you that's going to happen with the Switch as well. So we're already seeing really impressive looking games on Switch like Super Mario Odyssey and stuff like that. But I guarantee you third parties are going to keep pushing the envelope with what they can do on Switch. And look what's already been done with Mario and Rabbids.
Oh, yeah.
Third parties are going to keep pushing that envelope, and they're going to get more used to the Switch's hardware. And we already know from what various developers have said that the Switch is particularly easy to develop for to begin with. So couple that with, more and more years of development experience on it, it's just going to get better and better.
The outlook is very positive from everything that's being said by third-party publishers. Square Enix said they have a lot of interest. They're liking what they're seeing. Bandai Namco's okay, stuff. We said earlier, Capcom, yes, stuff's in the works. It just needs it's going to take some time, especially for the more uniquely crafted stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think everything's going to be ports either. I think
Right.
we're going to see some unique, possibly exclusive stuff to Switch. That's going to just take a little bit of time there. And I do want to give one last shout out to the indies.
Yes.
Indies are seeing huge success on the Switch.
Yeah.
Games that are very old are all of a sudden coming out on the Switch and selling more than the combined sales of every other version of that game, which is great to hear. So even if you're looking for an indication of success, look at indies. They've always been around on all the platforms. They found success here and here, but it sounds like almost everything is a big success story for indies coming out on Switch right now.
Cool.
Totally. No, I've been telling people that the Switch for me, I'm a huge fan of platformers, especially 2D platformers, and the Switch has, and I wasn't expecting this, but very quickly become the indie platformer dream machine. There are so many games, and there was one game that came back out in June that I didn't get to mention, that came out in the middle of all the E3 flurry, but I got to give a special shout out to Mighty Gunvolt Burst, only because I never thought Beck could ever be recontextualized in a good game, but he has been, and so I'm glad that there is life beyond Beck and Call and the Mighty Numbers beyond Mighty Number 9, because you know what, Mighty Gunvolt Burst is a damn good game, and those are cool characters. So I'm glad that now we're in a post Mega Man 11 announcement world. We know Mega Man's fine and healthy. I'm glad that Beck, who was a laughingstock for so long. He's actually, he had a chance to be in another good platformer.
Yeah.
And it came out in the middle of E3, so no one knew about it. No one. I don't know how widely played it was. I think Inti Create said sales were pretty good. But
Oh,
it came
nice.
out literally the Thursday of E3.
It looked like it wasn't a huge
I think
budget
it did.
too. It looks like it wasn't a huge commitment on their
Right,
part. So
right,
yeah,
exactly.
I think that was
So just had to put that out there.
nice. Yeah, I like
Definitely.
that.
Yeah.
Good example there. To close out November, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon also came out that month.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. They did chart. I think they were number 10 and 11 or 9 and 10 on the NPD. So still selling, but surprised they weren't like cemented in the top 10. Like they're at the lower end. So.
Yeah.
And then
People waiting for that Switch version of Pokemon.
yeah. And then Sonic Forces happened, and
Yeah, Sonic,
it wasn't horrible, but it was
Sonic
just
Forces. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
oh,
It was exact. It's a perfect. It was like meh.
Yeah, that's all.
I wanted it to be the next Sonic Generations. I loved Sonic Generations and Sonic Colors. So many fans are waiting for
Yeah.
that, and then it just
There was
the
something
Avatar nonsense, and you got
Oh, gosh.
the just. You can tell there were so many clashing design ideas that just didn't work in that game, and I don't know why they didn't just stay the course and make it the next modern Sonic game and go with what they knew worked.
I think they were just worried. Like, I think Mania's existence, and they knew about its development. Mania was not the Sonic Teams game. I think they just knew what was going on with it, and I felt they might have felt some of the pressure. Like, they saw the buzz building for Mania, and
they're like, we got to have an Avatar. We got to have this. And now I love the meme potential for the Avatar character in Sonic Forces. I love it for that, but it diluted what was otherwise. I don't even think classic Sonic needed to be there. His gameplay wasn't even that great in Forces. Keep it to modern Sonic. Like, that's what we wanted more of, the boost gameplay,
Because
and
now
they
you
just
have
didn't.
Sonic Mania, you don't even need it. You're not
Exactly.
you're
Sonic
not
Mania is
feeling
already
hungry
doing
anymore.
classic Sonic the
Yeah.
right way. So
Yeah.
just let modern Sonic have his own games. And
I get that.
I wanted one more really good boost style game before they move on to whatever new idea they try next.
I feel like they might need some outside intervention on 3D Sonic. They might
They
need
didn't
some
before,
assist-
though. That's what makes they
Just to
somehow
get 'em
got
back on
worse
course.
at making them since 2011. How did they?
Maybe they'll look back at 2017, see the inspiration for all these like games that came out that were tried risk and were a little bit more bold.
Yeah.
And might embolden them to take more risk with the next 3D Sonic and also Mania success. We'll see. Wrapping out the end of the year. We're in December right now. We're not done. We're not through December, but so far in December, another promise kept. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 coming out at the beginning of the month. I streamed through the whole game.
You streamed through the whole game, dude?
I streamed the whole playthrough
How
of
many
that game.
hours?
Well, the thing is, I left my Switch on by accident, so there's like an extra 10 hours. But I think if you go by the actual time, it's like 63 hours.
That's a lot of a streaming.
That's
Dude.
actually less than I was. I was lower
Because
number.
my
than I
final
thought.
play time is like 73 or 74 hours on the save file, but people did the math. I think like around 9 or 10ish hours were me. I left the Switch on with the game active, and it was counting that time. And then I came back and saved, and nothing had happened. But like I added that time to the playtime. I was like, oops, dumb.
Yeah.
But I want to say this: it seems to have reviewed pretty well. There are some complaints about it. There's some criticisms leveraged at it. Some people love it. Some people like it but find faults in it. I will say that the announcement that they're going to continuously address the issues by like doing patch updates, almost like a content as a service, basically, game as a service.
Right.
Starting with the map stuff. I cannot tell you how many times throughout my playthrough I would yell about the map stuff to the chat. And they were like, okay, yeah, like you could just do it this way, but you sort of got a point. It's one of the first things they're doing is like, yeah, we got it. Like the map system needs to be streamlined. We need to make it easier to access a map, period. Tell you where you are. But like they talked about like the battle system. They're looking at like everything in that game to see like what the criticisms were, to see if they can like fine tune some things. I felt like, you know what? So I'm going to say this. This is how I feel about Xenoblade Chronicles at the end of the day. I think they were more concerned about keeping their promise and keeping a spotless record in 2017. The point to that, when I think this game could have used a little bit more time. I think this should have been pushed into 2018, and it might have been better off for it. That is like my honest feeling about that game after playing it, is that given it more time, I probably would have been like, yes, this is an amazing game or something if a few things were addressed. And honestly, 2017, it didn't need it. There's so many great games that came out, period, not just on Switch, that I think it didn't need to happen. But you know what? Nintendo wanted it to happen. It did come out. And despite some of the flaws that I found in the game, it's still pretty good. It's still a pretty good game. So don't want to take anything away from it. We don't know how well it's sold. We don't know anything like that yet. We won't find out till next year in January when the end of December NBD comes out. But like, I don't want to spend too much time talking about like, you know, I basically let's spend as much time we spent on any other game with this, with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, have you from what you played, did you enjoy it? Do you think it was a good way to cap out the year? Did anything of what I said about maybe pushing it into next year might have made sense? I don't know. It feels like everyone had a very unique experience with this game, and it varies slightly.
Yeah, I had a strange experience with this game only because I did the previews. So I was the one who, Derek did the review. He's the resident giant Xenoblade fan. I love RPGs in general, but I was the one who did all the trade show previews and things. And, you know, I love the original Xenoblade Chronicles. I didn't like X very much, but again, not big on the open world stuff. But I have a weird relationship with this game because I haven't had time to play it, of course. It's just one of those, another 100-plus hour game, although you did say 67 hours. So, but more than that, I don't think Nintendo did a great job demoing the game at previews, just because I love the Nintendo reps, the Treehouse guys. They did their best to demo the game, and I have a lot of respect for them. But the demo was structured such you're dropped into the middle of the game with no tutorial or literally no explanation about what is a really complex battle system. Even if you're coming from having experience with Chronicles 1 or X, it's pretty different. And so I was just, plopped in there for my hour playing, and I had to have the Nintendo reps explain to me what the hell's going on. And I'm an RPG veteran, but like, that is not the kind of battle system that you can't just jump into that game and figure it out, really. It's not at all. So I actually left a lot of my preview appointments feeling kind of deflated about it and de-hyped. And then so I ended up asking Derek when he was playing it for the review, like, hey, how are you feeling about it? He's like, I promise you, don't worry. If you play from the beginning, the way the tutorials are done is you will absolutely be a master of the battle system and you'll love it. But I totally get why you didn't like it, just being thrown into it. So I have to take him at his word. He and I, our tastes usually align anyway. It's just a matter of when am I going to get a chance to play it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Damiani, I do think it was probably a good idea to get it out this year, though.
Okay.
And that's kind of like what you said, not just keep a spotless record, but just to gain trust in the Switch, to make people feel good about the Switch in this year. And also, I think 2018, I don't know if we're doing like what we dream about 2018 in this, but I just think it's going to be nuts. No time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll save that for 2018.
Yeah.
But I think 2018 is going to be nuts. I don't think 2018 will need Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
I agree with that. Like, it's more after having played it, it could have used the benefit of all the games I played this year on the Switch. This one from the first party, this was the one that could have used more time. I feel it wasn't the level of excellence that I experienced from most every other first party Switch game I played this year.
I got you. Yeah.
Just to I'll probably say my thoughts. I'm sure I'll either be on a frame trap or maybe next Front Code I'll do a Xenoblade special. But
sure.
The battle system stuff did trip me up. I mean, playing from the beginning, I did feel that the game could have done a little bit more to force you to demonstrate you understood the battle system before getting too far into the game. Because I feel like you can kind of bluntly half-ass some stuff in the battle system. Like, I didn't really understand.
Early on.
I didn't really understand everything about it, but I understood enough that I'm like, okay, I'm going to win this fight. And then eventually at a point, it starts to become a little rough, and it's like you really, if I had just known how to do one specific thing, I'm talking about the elemental combo stuff.
Right.
I had to watch 2 videos. One was a GameXplain video.
Nice.
2 videos and read one guide. And then even after that, a person in chat had to draw me a diagram because it was the visual representation of it. It was it actually was something really simple, but nowhere did anywhere did the game show you that visually very well. In text wise, I think it makes sense. As long as you wrap your head around the visual immediately and you latch onto that, the text works, like what they're telling you. But if you, like me, if you fail to latch onto the visual and don't comprehend it, the text I was being fed, I'm like, I get what you're saying, but like, how does that work up here? It doesn't make, anyway. It was more a me problem than the game problem. In the end, I'm gonna be fair here, but I did towards my first 20-hour mark, I was getting a little frustrated with the game in terms of its battle system. That I was getting, because the battles were taking so long. I wasn't winning all of them. Not even boss battles. It's like regular battles against some of the harder enemies. I was trying to go after like some of the hunt type enemies or the rare monsters, the NMs or whatever. And I was like, I'm winning this. I know the last third they kick into like an overdrive. They get really hard. But even before that, they would just like do something that was slightly different to break my rhythm, and I'd be so harshly penalized for it. And I wasn't understanding why. And everyone was screaming at me. He was like, dude, you're not doing the combos right. You would have won this. I'm like, I don't get what you're talking about. I'm doing the topple to the launch. And like, what do you know that the element combos? I'm like, what the hell are element combos? It was like, I got really frustrated. But anyway, definitely we'll get into that at some point. But sure. I do think overall, though, it was still a pretty good game. And with the changes and stuff, I am slightly tempted to go back and keep playing some of the post-game stuff with the changes to see if it feels like it is an improved experience. We talked a little bit before the show about like Yooka-Laylee, the Switch port wrapping out the end of the year. Switch port finally came out. Seems like a very, very admirable effort for the port of that game.
It's the best console version straight up. I think
really?
Easily.
Wow.
I mean, the Xbox One and PS4 versions post-patch are a lot smoother. I reviewed the Xbox One version at launch, and it was a technical mess. It was absolutely a mess. Sure. Then they patched it, and it was better. But I think that the Switch version is actually even more stable than that. And I think there's something to that. As I've heard it said that only the Switch and original PC versions were developed in-house by Team 17 and Playtesting. And that the PS4 and Xbox One versions were outsourced, I think.
Yes. I don't know if the Switch version falls into that. It might be true, but prior to Switch version, the console versions were handled by somebody else. Yeah. And I heard there was some negative stuff that came out over that in terms of like the companies were like working with the games and stuff.
Sure.
So
yeah, it was pretty bad.
I can't go into too much details from what I heard, but
Switch version's good though.
And it's a good version of what I think is a good game, not a great one, but I think some of the hate toward Yooka-Laylee is a bit overblown. It's like, especially when playing on handheld, it's so elegant.
And they added was this in the original version? Because I remember in the PC version when I reviewed it, the short talk option. So the sound and I think the sound effects get a little grating after a while. You can make it so they do the thing like for a second.
I think that was in the launch, but I still think even now you can't do it. You can't fast forward the talking and cutscenes, which is really annoying.
Okay.
Which again is kind of Yooka-Laylee in a nutshell. It's a good game, just marred by some real seriously rough design issues. Sure. But it's still a good game at the end. I don't think it's like bad. It's
knowing how to play it, actually, I think it's better on subsequent playthroughs.
That might be true.
I'd played through it. I played through its entirety, like a significant amount of it. Like I beat it, tried to complete as much in addition to just beating it as I could. And going through demonstrating the Switch version on the stream recently, I wasn't having as bad of a time as I remember because I knew what to do, which was it helps a lot.
Sure.
I think looking back on it, I still think my base play is the casino level. I still think that's a really weak level. I know people, if they just straight up axe it, people are complaining, well, why is there only like a few levels in this game? Like the casino kind of made it like I think 5 worlds, right?
5 worlds total. Yeah,
that made it 5, but I think it could have stood on its own without the casino world or something. I don't know, but like that one, when I got there, things just went downhill, and I just did not have a good time in that area. It's like who thought this level was a good? I get it. Yeah. Sonic casino stuff is like everyone loves that, but like this is nothing. Like anyway, but. Regardless of that, the Switch version doesn't change the content. So like, if you sided with one side or the other on the original reviews, the only thing different here is like the convenience of playing it on the go and technical changes. So
and there are some nips and tucks across the board. But yeah, if you're gonna play Yooka-Laylee at all on console, Switch is the way in my opinion. Wow, especially in handheld mode. Like we were chatting a little bit before again, and that game, for whatever reason, I mean, it's fine in dock mode. It looks fine. You can tell the graphical downgrades from other versions a little bit. Not as much as you think, but it's fine in dock mode. But for some reason, in handheld mode, it's just a really elegant little game to play. It's not incredible, but it feels like it excels in a handheld format for whatever reason. And it's just it's a good version of a good game, I think, in my opinion. A decently good game.
Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah.
Final thing here, because we are like we're a little over, but to kind of wrap it up. Final, like how we feel about the Switch. Nintendo 2017. I am going to give a bit of info about the Switch specifically. In the first 9 months of its release, the Switch has topped 10 million sales worldwide. Yeah. So not even a full first year yet. Already at 10 million. They've upped the projections several times. Again, it is now projected to outsell the lifetime Wii U sales
In its
by the
first
end
year.
of its first year.
Amazing.
Which should show you, at the very least, huge improvement on that end. And honestly, 2017 was an amazing year in general for games. In fact, we were talking earlier, Ash, about this. I said, like, it felt like there was just too many good games each month that I couldn't get to all of them, and that's like my biggest regret.
Yeah.
I would like to see the perfect game year would be maybe just one great game a month, and everything else wasn't great. Like, scale it back a bit. You can do that for us publishers. You can make it happen. It's not that hard. But like, I'd rather take too many great games than not enough. Like the gaps, like several months of like, this sucks. There's no good games right now.
Yeah.
But Nintendo specifically everyone had a really good year. I'm going to say this now because I always get confused. Microsoft had a good year.
Yeah.
Sony had a good year. Nintendo had a good year. But for Nintendo, Sony had been having good years for a while now.
Yeah.
Nintendo finally having a good year after the Wii U is good news for that. It's good news for the industry.
Yeah.
So I feel this is one of the best years for Nintendo, and it just makes me so optimistic about what they have coming in 2018. Can't wait for that January Direct.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, when Nintendo thrives, the industry thrives. And I don't say that because I'm a Nintendo fanboy and Nintendo games are better than everything else. No, it's more that despite everything, you know, Nintendo will always march to the beat of their own drum and do their own thing, no matter what. And we saw that with the Wii U. Even when it wasn't working for them, they're going to do it. But especially when it works for them, it's even better that they're going to do it. And, you know, yeah, there's no one is ever going to take the same approach to game design and the game industry in general as Nintendo.
Yeah.
And that's why when Nintendo thrives, everyone thrives. And it's like, you know, I never thought that Nintendo was, you know, doomed. It's like, you know, and Nintendo's been doomed since 1996. Like, come on. It's you know, I'd never thought they were doomed. Even after the Wii U, it's like they have a massive war chest. You know, they were going to be okay. They could weather another Wii U probably. But I love firing on all cylinders. Nintendo is the best Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I love seeing Nintendo in this kind of come up year where they really, I mean, I thought they'd turn things around to a degree, but I never thought that they would turn things around in the Switch's year one so drastically the way they have, so quickly.
Yeah.
I really didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
It's been a cool year.
Yeah, like, I mean, they have, it is so obvious to me that they have really kind of reconstructed their development pipeline to the point where they don't have that HD development issue anymore where they were like, oh, we can't make games fast enough for the Wii U for people to buy them. It's like, no, whatever pipeline issue they had, they have 100% figured it out because we aren't even at the end of the Switch's year one yet. And look at we got one of the best Zeldas. We got one of the best Marios. We got Xenoblade. We got Splatoon. We got all these indie games. We got, you know, it's crazy. Like, I just didn't think, I thought they'd begin to turn it around this year, but I didn't think they'd completely right the ship like the way they have.
Yeah. And I think they really nailed it with the concept of the Switch. The complete 180 from the Wii U to the Switch. How they needed two E3s to try and explain the Wii U to people. The stories of people confusing it for, like, the concept. I get it. Nintendo probably internally thought this concept is simple. People get it. It's a new system with a tablet.
Yeah.
But to everyone else, probably because of the name, for whatever reason, some people thought it was an accessory or just a redesign of the Wii with a tablet. Like, they misfired on that, and then other problems as well. Switch, just like perfect
from the start.
Switching back and forth,
logo.
having a console that everything's easy. I know it hasn't been perfectly smooth. There have been some like bumps in the road there, but in general, it works as advertised. And the handheld mobile component of it seems to be like winning people over, and also like the huge solid lineup of games from their own first party studios and, you know, everyone else supporting it. I think I love it when they get this all right.
Well, and I think also the Switch, you know, the hardware now is at the point and is, you know, has gotten to the point where the Switch can be feasibly what the Wii U tried to be. You know, I think the Switch is what the Wii U kind of wanted to be, but the technology wasn't there for it to be that. And now you don't have to be tethered to a base system. Yep. Now, you know, you do have true freedom, which is what the Wii U tried to do again, but it couldn't do it. The technology wasn't there. But now you have, you know, the technology is there. Nintendo has really capitalized on it. And I think what's very key in terms of the R&D for the Switch is that they landed on a really ideal confluence between price point and power.
Yes.
Like if the Switch was even a little less powerful than it is, I don't know if we'd be looking at some of the really impressive stuff where like Doom. The fact they were able to get Doom running on the Switch at all is incredible to me. So I think they really landed on a nice, compromise between price point and power, because it's powerful enough to run games that look great and powerful enough to, run acceptable looking versions of games on more powerful consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else from you, Kyle? Oh, no.
No. I'm all right. I realized we never talked about Animal Crossing. You said you didn't want
that's
any
right.
Animal Crossing.
Yes,
Animal Crossing.
But just do it real quick,
Yeah.
Damiani, because we are way over time.
We are.
Yeah, I mean, Animal Crossing Pocket came out,
Yep.
and I just played it for an hour, and then I lost all interest. That's my take on it.
Great.
Me too.
I don't need another game like this. I guess if you never played Animal Crossing, it'll get you into it. You're probably gonna want that Animal Crossing Switch when it comes out.
Yeah.
So it's doing the same thing. I think I preface it by saying I'm not as big into Animal Crossing as I am into Fire Emblem.
Right.
So I kind of already was going into a little bit of bias, but I did try it out, and it's very analogous to Fire Emblem Heroes. They're doing a lot of similar things there.
My quick summary of Nintendo 2017. Well, I guess I don't know. It's all in Mario. Mario's the game I never thought they would make. I never thought we'd go back to this 3D platformer. This one in particular is even more about exploration than I think even 64 is. And so it's the game I've been dreaming of, and that happened this year. And so I'm just my sentiment with what they're doing is high.
All right.
Yeah.
Good year for Nintendo. Looking forward to 2018. I want to thank you again for joining us, Ash. Thank you for taking some of your time out of your day.
Oh, please, thank you. Like I told you guys before, I was already a big fan of Easy Allies before, getting to collab with you guys. So I'd love to do more and would love to get you guys on some GX discussions or something. But
Awesome.
This has been great. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I've had a great time.
No, you were very good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for those of you who don't know, I have links I have a link in the description to GameXplain for the shameful people out there who don't know what GameXplain is.
No. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. But do check it out. Check it out. Yeah.
Yes.
You do know.
Thank you very much.
You guys, the viewers will eventually get better at telling when I'm joking, and trolling, and stuff.
Yes.
We gotta train people like that. Again, apologies to anyone who was expecting patrons polls questions. I will try and get them to return in the next episode. I actually don't know for sure if the next episode will hit on time because of our holiday schedule, but I will keep you updated on Patreon. If it's not going to happen the week it's supposed to, I will give you an update there. But until next time, may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.